The crystal chandeliers of the Palmer House ballroom cast elegant shadows across marble floors as Chicago's elite gathered for the annual Barrett Industries Charity Gala. I stood in the shadows near the service entrance, watching my stepsister Victoria hold court near the champagne fountain, her designer gown catching light like spun gold. "Can you believe she actually showed up?" Victoria's voice carried across the marble, pitched just loud enough to ensure I'd hear. Daddy's little secretary trying to play businesswoman. I smoothed down my navy Tom Ford suit, not that anyone here would recognize the label. To them, I was still Emma Thorne, the charity case who typed memos and fetched coffee, my father's assistant, nothing more. If only they knew. "Emma," my stepmother Margaret's voice cut through the murmur of conversation, "be a dear and fix the place cards at table 7. Someone made a terrible mistake with the seating." I bit back a smile. The seating arrangements were exactly as I'd designed them, though of course, Margaret didn't know that, just like she didn't know who really owned the Palmer House now, or Barrett Industries, for that matter. "Of course, Margaret." I moved toward the table, heels clicking softly against marble. Behind me, I heard Victoria's theatrical whisper, "God, how embarrassing, she's basically the help." The help. I remembered that word from 15 years ago, when my father married Margaret and suddenly acquired a ready-made family complete with the perfect daughter, Victoria Barrett, homecoming queen turned business school graduate, now executive VP of strategy at Barrett Industries, a title earned through DNA rather than merit. I was 16 when Margaret moved into our house, bringing Victoria and a new set of rules. Gone were the quiet evenings when Dad and I would discuss business strategy over homework. Instead, there were cotillion classes, social obligations, and constant reminders that I wasn't quite polished enough. "Your father built this company from nothing," Margaret would say, eyeing my second-hand clothes. "We have standards to maintain." So I maintained them. I got the accounting degree they expected, took the entry-level position they offered, and played the role of the dutiful stepdaughter, all while building something of my own, piece by quiet piece. The first acquisition was a small tech startup in Milwaukee, then a manufacturing plant in Detroit, a shipping company in Cleveland, each purchase carefully masked through holding companies and offshore accounts, each victory celebrated in silence. "Emma," Victoria's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She stood by table 7, champagne in hand, examining my work with a critical eye. "The Hendersons can't sit with the Caldwells. Honestly, how long have you worked here? Don't you know anything about social dynamics?" I straightened the last place card. "My mistake. I'll fix it right away." "See that you do." She turned to the cluster of admirers who always seemed to orbit her. "Can you believe Daddy still keeps her around? Pure charity if you ask me. She's been his secretary for what, 10 years now? 8, I corrected softly, though I wasn't really his secretary. I hadn't been for years. The title was just a convenient cover while I executed the longest, most elaborate corporate takeover in Chicago's history. Victoria rolled her eyes. "Whatever, just try not to embarrass us tonight. The new investors are coming in dash." She stopped mid-sentence as William Chen, head of security, approached our group. His face was professionally neutral, but I caught the slight twitch of his lips, the ghost of a smile. "Miss Thorne," he said, voice carrying across the now hushed circle, "the board is ready for you. They're waiting in the executive suite." Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the floor. "The board? Why would they want to see the secretary?" I turned to her slowly, savoring the moment I'd waited 8 years to experience. "Oh, didn't you hear? Barrett Industries has a new CEO." I paused, letting the words sink in. "Actually, it has a new owner." The color drained from her face. "What are you talking about?" I reached into my clutch and withdrew a business card. Simple, elegant, with my name embossed in silver, Emma Thorne, Chief Executive Officer, Thorne Global Ventures. "You see, Victoria, while you were busy planning seating charts, I was planning something much bigger. Would you like to know what your company's really worth? Because I do, down to the last penny." Margaret appeared at Victoria's elbow, her face twisted in confusion. "This is absurd. Robert would never dash." "Robert didn't." I cut in smoothly. "I did, through a series of shell corporations and strategic investments over the past 8 years. As of 4 p.m. today, Thorne Global Ventures owns 51% of Barrett Industries voting shares." The ballroom had gone completely silent. Hundreds of Chicago's most powerful people frozen in place, watching the scene unfold. I could see the questions in their eyes, the mental calculations as they reassessed every interaction we'd ever had. "That's impossible," Victoria whispered. "You're nobody, you're just a secretary." I smiled, remembering all the coffee runs, All the condescending comments, all the times they'd looked right through me. A secretary who now owns controlling interest in Chicago's largest private equity firm. Funny how life works out, isn't it? William stepped forward again. Miss Thorne, the board is waiting. Thank you, William. I turned to go, then paused. Oh, and Victoria? About those new investors you mentioned? They work for me, all of them. In fact, I gestured to the room at large. You might want to check your phones. My name's on quite a few business cards these days. As if on cue, phones began buzzing throughout the ballroom. News alerts, stock notifications, urgent messages from financial advisors. The truth spreading like wildfire through Chicago's business elite. I walked toward the executive elevator, leaving chaos in my wake. Behind me, I heard Victoria's shrill voice, "Daddy, do something." But there was nothing Robert Barrett could do, nothing any of them could do, because while they'd been dismissing me as just a secretary, I'd been building an empire. And now, finally, everyone would know it. The executive suite of the Palmer House hadn't changed much in the 15 years since I first stepped inside it. Same mahogany paneling, same leather chairs, same oil paintings of Chicago's Gilded Age, but the energy was different tonight, electric, uncertain. 12 members of Barrett Industries' board sat around the massive conference table, their black tie attire at odds with their tense expressions. My father occupied his usual seat at the head of the table, but something had shifted in his posture. For the first time, he looked old. "Emma," he said, his voice carrying a weight I'd never heard before, "I think you owe us an explanation." I took my time settling into the chair opposite him, smoothing my suit, taking in each face around the table. James Chen from acquisitions, Patricia Mueller from operations, Thomas Blackwood from legal. All of them had walked past my desk for years, barely sparing me a glance. An explanation? I kept my voice level. I believe the quarterly reports explain everything quite clearly. Barrett Industries has been underperforming for the past 5 years. Cost overruns, missed opportunities, declining market share. I paused, letting each point land. The shareholders deserved better leadership. "This is outrageous." Victoria burst out from the doorway where she'd been hovering. "You can't just walk in here and dash." "Actually, I can." I withdrew a folder from my briefcase. "Shall we discuss the Anderson merger? The one you championed last quarter?" Victoria's face paled. "What about it?" "The due diligence was sloppy, the valuation inflated. If it had gone through, it would have cost the company nearly $300 million in hidden liabilities." I spread the documents across the table. Fortunately, someone noticed the discrepancies before the deal closed. "That deal fell through because of regulatory issues," Victoria protested. "No," I corrected gently, "it fell through because I made sure it did. Just like I made sure the Singapore expansion was delayed and the tech division restructured. I've been protecting this company from its own management for years." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Every major decision, every strategic pivot, every mysterious market force that had shaped Barrett Industries' trajectory, all of it traced back to me. "Why?" My father's question cut through the tension. "Why go to all this trouble? Why not just tell me?" I met his gaze steadily. "Would you have listened?" The question hung in the air, heavy with years of missed dinners, ignored suggestions, and patronizing pats on the head. We both knew the answer. "Mr. Barrett," William appeared in the doorway. "The press is requesting comment on the ownership change." "Thank you, William, but Mr. Barrett no longer speaks for the company." I stood, straightening my jacket. "I'll handle the press conference myself." "This is a mistake." Margaret's voice trembled from where she stood behind Victoria. "Robert, tell her this is a mistake." But my father said nothing. He just stared at the documents before him. Years of careful planning laid bare in spreadsheets and contracts. "The mistake," I said quietly, "was assuming I would stay in my place, that I would be content fetching coffee while Victoria ran this company into the ground. I graduated from Wharton," Victoria snapped. "I have an MBA. And I have controlling interest in 12 major corporations across 3 continents." I smiled. "Funny how none of you ever wondered how a secretary could afford Armani suits or a penthouse in the Gold Coast." "Those were gifts from Robert," Margaret said weakly. "We thought he was just being generous to his employee." "No," my father spoke up, his voice rough. I didn't buy those things." He looked at me with new eyes. "You did all of this yourself? Every penny, every deal, every victory and setback. While you were grooming Victoria to take over, I was building something bigger." I turned to the board members. "Now, shall we discuss the future of Barrett Industries? I have some rather significant changes in mind." The next hour was a masterclass in corporate restructuring. I outlined my vision for the company: streamlined operations, aggressive expansion into emerging markets, strategic partnerships with 3 of my other holdings. With each point, I watched the board's expression shift from skepticism to genuine interest. These projections, James Chen leaned forward, studying the numbers. They're incredible. They're conservative. Actually, I pulled up another spreadsheet. My analysts suggest we could see 40% growth in the first year post-restructuring. Your analysts? Victoria's voice cracked. Who are you? I turned to her slowly. I'm the woman you've been stepping over for 8 years. The secretary who built a multi-billion-dollar empire while you were taking 2-hour lunches and dating hedge fund managers. Board members. My father cleared his throat. I believe we should take a brief recess to dash. No need. I cut in smoothly. The votes are already in. Check your emails. One by one, they reached for their phones. The message was clear. 9 of 12 board members had already pledged their support to my leadership. Game over. This isn't personal, I said, though we all knew that wasn't entirely true. This is business. Barrett Industries needs new direction. Victoria, I turned to my stepsister. You'll be offered a generous severance package. I suggest you take it. She stormed out, Margaret trailing behind her. The board members filed out shortly after, leaving me alone with my father. When did you become this? He gestured vaguely at me, at the documents, at the empire I'd built in silence. I was always this, Dad, you just never noticed. I gathered my papers, tucking them back into my briefcase, too busy trying to turn Victoria into your perfect heir to see you already had one. He slumped in his chair, looking defeated. What happens now? Now? I stood, smoothing my suit one final time. Now I do what I should have been doing all along, running this company properly. I paused at the door. Oh, and Dad? You might want to update your resume. The board expects my full restructuring plan on Monday, and I don't believe in nepotism. The press conference that followed was brief but seismic. Chicago's business community watched in stunned silence as I outlined my vision for Barrett Industries' future. No mention of family drama or personal vendettas, just clear, strategic thinking and bold plans for growth. Afterward, as reporters clamored for additional comments, I caught sight of Victoria and Margaret hovering near the exit, their expressions a mix of fury and fear as they watched their world reshape itself around them. Ms. Thorne, a reporter called out, any truth to the rumors that you've acquired controlling interest in other major Chicago firms? I smiled, thinking of the dozen other deals set to close next week, the carefully constructed web of power and influence I'd spent years weaving. Let's just say, I adjusted my cuffs, revealing a flash of the Cartier watch Victoria had once mocked as obviously fake, that my business card collection is quite extensive. The headlines the next morning were everything I'd dreamed of, but it was the small moments that brought the most satisfaction. The look on Victoria's face when security cleared out her office. Margaret's stammered apology when she realized I now owned her country club. The way the word secretary suddenly disappeared from everyone's vocabulary. But the real victory came 3 months later, when the quarterly reports showed Barrett Industries' strongest performance in a decade. Turns out the secretary knew a thing or two about running a company after all. I kept the nameplate from my old desk, tucked it away in a drawer in my new corner office, a reminder that success doesn't always wear designer suits or announce itself with fanfare. Sometimes it sits quietly, taking notes, building empires in the margins of other people's stories. Victoria sent me a message shortly after the dust settled, an attempt at reconciliation wrapped in a business proposal. I had my assistant decline both. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. My father, to his credit, took his dismissal with dignity. He sent a single email, "You became everything I should have seen in you. I'm sorry I missed it." I didn't reply. Instead, I focused on what I do best, building, growing, succeeding. The secretary turned CEO, the afterthought turned empire builder. And every morning, when I walk into the Barrett Industries headquarters, soon to be renamed Thorne Global Center, I smile at the security guards who once barely noticed me, let my heels click against marble floors that now belong to me, and I remember that sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right. The end.
From the sterile chill of the hospital room, my life's purpose crystallized. I'm Alina, and this is where my story truly begins. Not with the fairy tale romance I'd imagined, but with words that would forever change me. You're useless to me now. Gabriel's voice was flat, emotionless. He stood at the foot of my hospital bed, designer suit pristine, as if he hadn't spent the last 6 hours in the waiting room while I lost our baby. What? My throat was raw from crying. The monitors still beeped steadily beside me, a cruel reminder that while my heart was still beating, something precious had stopped. I married you to have children, Alina. That was the deal. He checked his Rolex, not even looking at me. The doctors said there might be complications with future pregnancies. I can't waste time waiting around to see if you'll ever be able to carry to term. The nurse who had been adjusting my IV froze, her hand hovering over the tubing. I saw fury flash across her face before she schooled her features into professional neutrality. Gabriel, please. My voice cracked. We can try again. We can adopt. There are options. I've already called my lawyer. He finally met my eyes, and I saw nothing there. No love, no grief, just cold calculation. The papers will be ready tomorrow. I suggest you sign them quickly. It'll be easier for both of us. The nurse stepped between us. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. My patient needs rest. Gabriel straightened his tie. Of course. Goodbye, Alina. The door clicked shut behind him with terrible finality. What a piece of work, the nurse muttered, checking my vitals. Honey, do you want me to call someone? I nodded numbly, and she handed me my phone. My fingers trembled as I dialed. Mom? The word came out as a sob. Alina? What's wrong, sweetheart? My mother's warm voice made the dam break. Can you come? Please? I lost the baby. And Gabriel, he's leaving me. That bastard. I heard keys jingling in the background. I'm on my way. Don't you move a muscle. The nurse, her nameplate read Sarah, squeezed my hand. Your mom's coming? Good. I'll bring you some tea. The next few hours passed in a blur. My mother arrived like an avenging angel, all 5'2" of her bristling with protective fury. She held me while I cried, stroked my hair like she did when I was small. I knew that man was wrong for you from the start, she said, pulling back to look at me. But listen to me, Alina. This is not the end of your story. This is just the beginning. How can you say that? I gestured at the hospital room, the monitors, my own broken body. I've lost everything. Everything? She raised an eyebrow. You've lost a husband who never deserved you and a baby who is too precious for this world. But you haven't lost yourself. You haven't lost your mind, your strength, your determination. I don't feel very strong right now. Then borrow mine until yours comes back. She gripped my hands. You remember what I always told you about karma? That it's a patient accountant, I whispered, managing a weak smile. Exactly. And someday when you're ready, you'll balance those books. She reached into her bag and pulled out a notebook and pen. For now, we plan. We rebuild. We rise. Looking at that simple notebook, something shifted inside me. The raw wound of loss was still there, but alongside it, a seed of purpose took root. First, I said, taking the pen, I need a good divorce lawyer. Mom smiled. That's my girl. And then, I paused, the pen hovering over the blank page. I think I want to become one. A lawyer? She nodded slowly. You always did love arguing your case. For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt a flicker of something like hope. I want to help people who've been wronged. I want to make sure justice is served. Justice? Mom's eyes twinkled. Or revenge? Maybe both. I started writing, my handwriting growing stronger with each word. But first, I need to get out of this hospital. One step at a time, sweetheart. She settled into the chair beside my bed. One step at a time. As night fell over the city, I kept writing. Plans, dreams, goals, each word a brick in the foundation of my new life. Gabriel thought he'd destroyed me, but he'd only cleared the ground for something stronger to grow. I am Alina, and this is where my story begins. Not with an ending, but with a promise to myself. Someday, the books would balance, and Gabriel would learn exactly what he'd thrown away. In his eyes, I saw echoes of who I once was, and who I could still become. Jonathan sat across from me in the law school library, his textbooks spread across the table like a paper fortress. "You're going about this all wrong," he said, tapping my case brief. "The precedent isn't in Thompson v. State. Look at the Marshall case from '98. 3 years had passed since the hospital room, and I was halfway through law school, running on caffeine and determination. I'd met Jonathan in constitutional law, where his brilliant arguments caught my attention, and my relentless questioning caught his. The Marshall case? I flipped through my notes. But that was about corporate fraud, not personal liability. Exactly. He leaned forward, eyes bright with enthusiasm. Think bigger, Alina. Sometimes the best path isn't the obvious one. A group of first years shuffled past our table, looking shell-shocked from their latest exam. I remembered that feeling, but now it was replaced by something else. Purpose. "Speaking of thinking bigger," Jonathan said, closing his book, "there's an internship opening at my father's firm. Corporate law, mostly real estate deals." I shook my head. "I'm focusing on family law, remember?" "Are you?" He gave me that penetrating look that always made me feel transparent. "Or are you focusing on one particular family law case?" My pen stilled. "What do you mean?" "I've seen you researching Gabriel's company. Don't deny it. You're not as subtle as you think." Heat crept up my neck. "I'm just keeping informed." "Alina." Jonathan reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "You're brilliant, driven, and capable of so much more than spending your career fixing other people's broken marriages. Take the internship. Learn how money really works. Then, if you still want to pursue family law, you'll have a broader arsenal at your disposal." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. "Turn on the business news. Now." I pulled out my laptop, Jonathan moving to my side of the table as I found a live stream. There was Gabriel, standing at a podium, announcing his company's expansion into international markets. "Our future has never been brighter," he was saying, that familiar, confident smile in place. "With these new partnerships, we're positioned to double our market share within 5 years." "Interesting timing," Jonathan murmured, right after that merger with Pacific Holdings fell through. I turned to him sharply. "How do you know about that?" "My father's firm handled the due diligence. Let's just say there were irregularities in the books." The library suddenly felt too small, too quiet. "Tell me more." "Over dinner?" His smile was gentle but knowing. "There's a new place downtown. Great wine list, better conversation." I hesitated. Since Gabriel, I'd kept my walls high, my focus narrow. But Jonathan had never tried to scale those walls. He just kept showing up, offering friendship, insight, and now possibly the key to understanding Gabriel's world. "Okay," I said. "But I'm not drinking wine on an empty stomach. And this isn't a date." "Of course not." He gathered his books, amusement dancing in his eyes. Just 2 future lawyers discussing corporate finance over pasta. That evening changed everything. Over linguine and, yes, wine, Jonathan laid out the complex web of corporate law that could make or break companies like Gabriel's. With each detail, each potential vulnerability, I felt my perspective shifting. "You're right," I admitted as we walked back to campus. "I've been thinking too small." "You've been thinking like someone who is wronged," he said. "Start thinking like someone who wants to right those wrongs. Properly, legally, and absolutely." I stopped walking, studying his face in the streetlight. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I recognize that look in your eyes. It's the same one I had when my mother left us for her yoga instructor, taking half the family fortune." He shrugged. "The difference is I learned to channel it into something constructive. Let me help you do the same." "And the internship?" "Is legitimate. You'd be amazing at it. The fact that it might help you understand how to legally dismantle someone's empire is just a bonus." I laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in what felt like years. "You're dangerous, you know that?" "I prefer to think of myself as strategic. He offered his arm. Shall we head back? We have that ethics exam tomorrow, which is ironic given our conversation. Taking his arm, I felt something shift inside me, like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. Jonathan? Thank you. For seeing me as I am, not as what happened to me. He squeezed my hand. Always. Now about that ethics exam. We walked back to campus, discussing legal precedents and moral obligations, while in my mind, new possibilities began to take shape. Gabriel had taught me about loss. Jonathan was teaching me about power. And somewhere between the two, I was learning about justice. Every secret buried beneath layers of deception was a step closer to reckoning. I stood in my corner office, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over downtown. 7 years had transformed me from a broken woman into one of the city's most formidable corporate attorneys. Alina? Elisa knocked on my open door, manila folder in hand. You need to see this. I turned from the window. The audit reports? She closed the door behind her, voice dropping. Better. Remember that tip about Gabriel's offshore accounts? I found something interesting in his company's subsidiary filings. My heart quickened, but I kept my voice steady. Show me. Elisa spread the documents across my desk. See these transactions? They're routing money through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. But look at the dates. They align perfectly with the failed Pacific Holdings merger. I murmured, scanning the numbers. Jonathan was right. There's more. Elisa pulled out another document. I spoke to Jonah's assistant. You know, Gabriel's business partner? She's been keeping records of some questionable meetings. My phone buzzed. Jonathan. Hey, love, still at the office? Just wrapping up. Found something interesting. Good interesting or bad interesting? I smiled. Come over tonight? I'll tell you everything. Already on my way, bringing takeout from that Thai place you love. After hanging up, I turned back to Elisa. How solid is this evidence? She straightened her glasses. Solid enough to trigger an SEC investigation. But Alina? She hesitated. Are you sure you want to do this? Once we start, there's no going back. I've been waiting 7 years for this, Elisa. I'm ready. Then you should know. Gabriel's getting married. The words hit like a physical blow. What? It's all over the society pages. To Andrea Steele, the real estate heiress. The wedding's in 3 months. I sank into my chair, memories flooding back. My own wedding to Gabriel, the promises he'd made, the future he'd stolen. Alina? Elisa's voice was gentle. Maybe this is a sign to let it go. You've built an amazing life. You have Jonathan, the firm, respect. And Gabriel has faced no consequences. I cut in. He destroyed me and walked away without a scratch. Now he's about to do it again to someone else. You don't know that. I know Gabriel. I stood up, gathering the documents. Get me everything you can on Andrea Steele. And Elisa? Thank you. She paused at the door. Just be careful. Revenge has a way of burning both ends. Later that night, I laid out everything for Jonathan over pad thai and wine. He listened intently, asking occasional questions, his real estate developer's mind catching details I'd missed. The timing's perfect, he said finally. With the wedding coming up, he'll be distracted. Vulnerable. You don't think it's too much? He set down his wine glass. Honey, he left you in a hospital bed after losing your baby. He deserves whatever's coming. Elisa thinks I should let it go. And what do you think? I stood, walking to our apartment's floor-to-ceiling windows. Below, the city pulsed with life, each light representing someone's story, someone's truth. I think about that nurse, I said quietly. The one who was there when Gabriel left. How angry she was on my behalf. I think about other women like Andrea, walking into marriages built on lies. Someone needs to expose the truth. Jonathan came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Then do it. But do it smart. Do it legally, Make it stick. I will. I leaned back against him. I've learned from the best, after all. Flatterer. He kissed my neck. Want to run through the plan? We spent the next hour mapping it out. The evidence would go to the SEC, but not yet. First, we'd need to position everything perfectly. The wedding would provide the perfect stage, all of Gabriel's business associates, investors, and society friends in one place. You know what this means? I said, looking at our notes. I'll have to see him again, face to face. Are you ready for that? I thought about the hospital room, about the years of pain and rebuilding, about the woman I'd become. Yes, I said firmly. I'm not that broken girl anymore. I'm stronger now, smarter. And married to someone far more handsome, Jonathan added, making me laugh. That too. I gathered the documents into my briefcase. Tomorrow I'll have Elisa start the official paperwork. In 3 months, Gabriel's perfect world comes crashing down. And you? Jonathan asked softly. What happens to you after? I looked at him, at the life we'd built together, at the woman I saw in the mirror every morning. After? I finally close that chapter for good and write a new one. The city lights twinkled below, witnesses to my promise. The countdown to Gabriel's wedding had begun. Justice demanded more than knowledge. It demanded action. I sat in a cafe across from Jonah, Gabriel's business partner, watching him fidget with his coffee cup. 7 years had carved worry lines around his eyes, and his designer suit couldn't hide his nervous energy. I shouldn't be here, he said, glancing over his shoulder. If Gabriel finds out, he won't, I assured him, unless you tell him. Why now, Alina? After all these years? I slid a folder across the table. Because of this. Bank statements, offshore accounts, falsified records. You're not just his partner, Jonah. You're his accomplice. His face went pale as he flipped through the pages. How did you get these? Does it matter? What matters is that the SEC will get them too. Unless what? Hope flickered in his eyes. Unless you help me make things right. I leaned forward. Tell me everything. For the next hour, Jonah talked. About Gabriel's schemes, the investors he'd defrauded, the women he'd used. Each word confirmed what I'd suspected. Nothing had changed. He was still the same calculating predator who'd left me in that hospital room. My phone buzzed. Sienna. Hey, I'm outside. Still meeting? Just finishing. Come in. Jonah stiffened when Sienna approached our table. I should go. One more thing, I said. Andrea Steele. What does she know? Nothing. He wouldn't meet my eyes. She thinks he's perfect, just like you did. Sienna slid into the vacant seat as Jonah hurried away. Well, he looked terrified. He should be. I showed her the notes I'd taken. Everything Elisa found was true. And worse. Alina. Sienna hesitated. I've known you since college. You're my best friend. But this path you're on, are you sure it's worth it? You didn't see Andrea's interview in the society pages? Gabriel is everything I've ever dreamed of. We're planning to start a family right away. Oh, honey. Sienna reached for my hand. You can't save everyone. No, but I can stop him from destroying another life. My phone buzzed again. Elisa this time. Hey, what's up? Gabriel's here, at our office. My blood froze. What? He's asking for you. Says it's about the Reynolds merger. I'm on my way. I grabbed my bag, heart pounding. Sienna, go, call me after. The elevator ride to my office felt endless. When I stepped out, there he was, looking exactly as I remembered, yet somehow smaller, less intimidating. Alina. His smile was practiced, professional. You look well. Gabriel, what do you want? Direct as ever. He followed me into my office. I heard you're handling the Reynolds merger. I'd like to discuss a potential partnership. Not interested. Come on, Alina. The past is the past. We were young, things happened. Things happened? I turned to face him. Is that what you tell yourself at night? His smile hardened. I tell myself I made the right decision. Look at you now. Successful. Powerful. Would any of this have happened if I hadn't left? Get out. Think about the offer. It could be mutually beneficial. After he left, I called Jonathan. He knows, I said without preamble. He must suspect something, or he's trying to neutralize a threat before his wedding. Jonathan's voice was calm, steadying. Did you tip your hand? No, but seeing him, I took a shaky breath. It brought everything back. Come home. We'll order in, review the plan. You're not alone in this anymore, remember? That evening, surrounded by case files and half-eaten pizza, I showed Jonathan everything Jonah had revealed. The evidence is solid, he said, but the timing has to be perfect. At the wedding. I know. I picked up a photo of Andrea from the society pages. Young, beautiful, trusting. Jonathan, am I doing the right thing? He set down his papers. Let me ask you something. If someone had shown you proof of who Gabriel really was before your wedding, would you have wanted to know? Yes, I whispered. God, yes. Then you're not just getting revenge. You're doing what someone should have done years ago. He squeezed my hand. But whatever happens, I'm with you. Looking at our intertwined fingers, at the life we'd built, I felt certainty settle over me. Gabriel had walked into my office thinking he could manipulate me again, seeing only the broken woman he'd left behind. His mistake. 2 months until the wedding, I said. Time to set everything in motion. And after? I thought about Andrea, about justice, about closure. After we take that vacation to Italy you've been promising, I think I'll finally be ready. Jonathan smiled. I'll book the tickets tomorrow. The city hummed outside our windows, counting down the days until Gabriel's perfect world shattered. This time, I'd be the one walking away. Silence would no longer protect the guilty. The wedding invitation lay on my mother's kitchen table, its gold lettering catching the afternoon light. Mom set down her teacup, her expression troubled. It arrived this morning, I explained. Addressed to Ms. Alina Collins and guest. He's actually invited me to his wedding. The audacity of that man. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she picked up the invitation. Alina, sweetheart, are you absolutely certain about this? Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Sienna walked in, carrying a stack of folders. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was horrible. She stopped short when she saw our faces. Oh, the invitation came. Perfect timing, I said, pulling out Elisa's latest reports. We need to go over the final details. Mom stood up. Before you do, I need to say something. She took my hands in hers. I've watched you rebuild your life. You're stronger than I ever imagined possible. But this plan of yours, it could backfire spectacularly. Mom, let me finish. 7 years ago, I told you karma was a patient accountant. But sometimes the cost of balancing those books is higher than we expect. Sienna sat down, spreading the files across the table. She's right, Alina. I've been doing some digging on Andrea. She's not just some society princess. She runs 3 charitable foundations, mentors underprivileged kids. She's good. And that makes it worse, I said firmly. Gabriel will destroy her, just like he tried to destroy me. The only difference is I can stop it this time. My phone rang. Elisa. I put her on speaker. You need to see this, she said without preamble. Gabriel just moved $20 million through those shell companies. The pattern matches exactly what he did before the Pacific Holdings disaster. Mom's eyes widened. What does that mean? It means he's getting sloppy, I explained. Confident. The wedding's making him rush things. Or, Sienna interjected, he's setting up a trap. Think about it. The invitation, the sudden business proposal, now this? I pulled out my laptop, bringing up the evidence we'd gathered. That's why we need to move faster. Elisa, is everything ready with the SEC? Files are prepared. One word from you and it all goes live. Mom touched the screen where Gabriel's company financials glowed. All this just to stop a wedding? No, I said quietly. To stop a predator. To protect someone else from living through what I did. To finally make him face consequences. The kitchen fell silent except for the gentle hum of the laptop. Outside, a lawnmower droned, children played, life went on. Normal, peaceful, untouched by the storm brewing in my mother's sunny kitchen. Sienna broke the silence. I spoke to Jonah again yesterday. He's terrified, Alina. Says Gabriel's been acting strange, making calls at odd hours. Because he knows something's coming, I said. He just doesn't know what. Or who. Mom added softly. My phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. Andrea just called the office. Wants to discuss real estate for their new home. Meeting tomorrow? I showed the message to Sienna and Mom. Don't do it, Sienna said immediately. It's too risky. But Mom was studying my face. You're going to meet her, aren't you? I have to. I started gathering the files. I need to look in her eyes to be absolutely certain this is the right thing to do. And if it isn't? Mom's voice was gentle. Then I'll find another way. But I won't let him hurt anyone else. Sienna stood up, straightening her jacket. Then I'm coming with you. I'll sit in the lobby, just in case. I'll have Elisa on standby too, I said, hugging Mom goodbye. Everything's going to be fine. Wait. Mom disappeared into her bedroom, returning with a small box. Inside was the necklace she'd worn at my wedding to Gabriel. You left this here years ago. I think it's time you had it back. Mom, I can't. Take it. Wear it tomorrow. Remember who you were, who you are, and most importantly, who you want to become. She clasped it around my neck. Just promise me something? Anything. When this is all over, let it be over. Really over. Don't let him take any more of your life than he already has. I touched the necklace, feeling its familiar weight. I promise. Driving home that evening, the wedding invitation burning a hole in my bag, I thought about promises. The ones Gabriel broke. The ones I made to myself. And now this new one to my mother. Tomorrow, I would look into Andrea's eyes and make my final decision. The necklace caught the setting sun, throwing light across my dashboard like a warning or perhaps a blessing. One way or another, everything would change soon. Tomorrow, the past meets the present, and the future will never be the same. I adjusted my mother's necklace in the mirror of my office bathroom, steeling myself for what was coming. Andrea would be here any minute. My phone buzzed. Sienna. In position in the lobby. You sure about this? Before I could reply, Elisa appeared in the doorway. She's here. Conference room B. I took one last look in the mirror. Showtime. Andrea stood as I entered, exactly as beautiful as her photo suggested, but with a warmth they hadn't captured. Mrs. Collins, thank you so much for meeting with me. Please call me Alina. I gestured for her to sit. I understand you're interested in the Riverside development? Yes, Gabriel and I. She stopped, laughing softly. I'm sorry. I must sound like such a bride, bringing up my fiancé in every conversation. The word bride hit like a punch to the gut. I forced a smile. Not at all. Tell me about your plans. As Andrea described their dream home, I watched her hands move animatedly, saw the light in her eyes. She was everything I'd been 7 years ago. Hopeful, in love, planning a future. Actually, she said, pulling out her phone, I'd love your opinion on something else. Our wedding venue? She showed me photos of an elegant estate, the same place where Gabriel and I had married. It's perfect, I managed. I thought so too. Gabriel was hesitant at first, said something about wanting new beginnings, but... She paused, studying my face. I'm sorry, are you all right? You've gone pale. My phone buzzed. Jonah. Gabriel knows. He's on his way to your office. Get out. Mrs. Collins? Alina? I looked at Andrea's concerned face and made a split-second decision. There's something you need to see. I pulled out the file we'd prepared. Bank statements, SEC violations, photos of secret meetings. Before you marry Gabriel, you need to know who he really is. Her hands shook as she read. I don't understand. These transactions are illegal. He's been defrauding investors for years. And there's more. I told her everything. The hospital, the baby, his cruel words. With each revelation, her face grew paler. No, she whispered. He wouldn't. He's changed. He loves me. He loved me too, until I couldn't give him what he wanted. The conference room door burst open. Gabriel stood there, fury etched on his face. Get away from her. Gabriel? Andrea's voice was small. Is it true? Whatever she's told you, she's lying. She's bitter, trying to ruin our happiness. Like you ruined mine? I stood, facing him. Tell her, Gabriel. Tell her what you said to me in that hospital room. You're pathetic. He spat. 7 years and you're still not over it? Andrea stood up, gathering her papers with trembling hands. I need to think. Andrea, wait. Gabriel reached for her, but she jerked away. Don't touch me. She turned to me. Thank you for telling me. I need time. After she left, Gabriel advanced on me. You've just made the biggest mistake of your life. No, that was marrying you. I held up my phone. By the way, this entire conversation is being recorded and copied to multiple secure locations. His face contorted. You think you're so clever. You have no idea what's coming. Actually, I do. I pressed a button on my phone. Now, Elisa. The office doors opened. 2 SEC agents walked in, followed by Elisa with more files. Mr. Myers, one agent said, we need you to come with us. On what grounds? Securities fraud, for starters. The agent began reading him his rights. I watched as they led him away, his perfect facade crumbling. Jonathan appeared at my side, taking my hand. Andrea's downstairs with Sienna, he said softly. She's asking to speak with you again. Is she okay? No, but she will be, just like you were. I touched my mother's necklace. The wedding's still 2 days away. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time for the final act. Call Elisa's contact at the newspaper. Tell them I'm ready to talk. Jonathan squeezed my hand. Are you sure? Once this goes public, I'm sure. I looked around my office at the life I'd built from the ashes of what Gabriel destroyed. It's not just about revenge anymore. It's about truth. Your mother would be proud. She already is. I picked up my phone to call her. But first, I need to help Andrea understand she's not alone. That surviving Gabriel Myers is possible. That there's life after the fairy tale ends. Tomorrow, Gabriel's perfect world would shatter completely. But tonight, I had a different mission. Showing another woman the path forward, the way out, the strength she didn't know she had. Sometimes karma needs a little help after all. In the echo of shattered vows, I found my voice. The grand estate where Gabriel's wedding was supposed to take place buzzed with confused guests and frantic wedding planners. Instead of wedding bells, police sirens wailed in the distance. Ms. Collins? A reporter approached, microphone extended. Can you comment on the allegations against Gabriel Myers? All the evidence has been turned over to the proper authorities, I said, the words we'd rehearsed flowing smoothly. The SEC's investigation will speak for itself. More reporters swarmed, but Jonathan appeared at my side, guiding me through the chaos. Inside the wedding hall was a scene of elegant devastation. White flowers, crystal glasses, and shocked faces everywhere. He was supposed to be here an hour ago, I heard someone whisper. Where is he? Probably in custody by now, another guest muttered. Did you see the morning papers? The front page story had broken just hours before the ceremony. Corporate fraud exposed. Prominent CEO faces criminal charges. The article detailed everything. The offshore accounts, the investor fraud, The pattern of deception. Andrea stood in a side room, still in her wedding dress, surrounded by her parents and Sienna. When she saw me, she straightened her spine. "You could have just told me privately," she said. "Why like this?" "Because private truths don't stop public predators." I moved closer. "I'm sorry for the pain, but not for the truth." Her father stepped forward. "Thank you. We had no idea. The foundation's money was invested with him. If this had gone through—" "Daddy, please," Andrea whispered. I can't think about that right now." Suddenly, a commotion erupted in the main hall. Gabriel had arrived, flanked by his lawyer and bail bondsman. His perfect suit was wrinkled, his face haggard. "Andrea," he called out, "let me explain." I moved to block his path, but Andrea stepped around me. "No need," she said, her voice steady. "The SEC explained everything. The fraud, the lies, the other women. Even what you did to Alina. That was different. I've changed. Save it for your testimony." She pulled off her engagement ring, letting it fall to the marble floor with a musical ping. "I believe the prosecutors will be very interested in hearing all about your changes." Gabriel's face contorted. "This is your fault," he snarled at me. "You vindictive bitch. You couldn't let it go. Actually," Jonah stepped forward from the crowd, "it's your fault. I gave them everything, Gabriel. Every document, every transaction, every secret meeting. It's over." The wedding guests were recording everything on their phones now. Tomorrow, this would be all over social media, Gabriel's carefully constructed image shattering in real time. "You're all going down with me," Gabriel threatened. "The board? The investors? No," I cut in. "Just you. We made sure of that. Check your accounts, Gabriel. While you were being processed last night, the SEC froze everything. The real estate, the offshore funds, even your backup accounts in Switzerland." His face went ashen. "You can't—" "She can," his lawyer muttered. "And she did. Legally, perfectly. Now shut up before you make things worse." Andrea's father stepped forward. "I believe you should leave. Before I call security." As Gabriel was led away, the wedding guests began to disperse, murmuring among themselves. Andrea turned to me. "How did you do it?" she asked. "Move on? Build a new life?" "One day at a time," I said, "with help from people who loved me. Speaking of which," I gestured to where Sienna stood with the change of clothes. "Let's get you out of that dress." Later, as the sun set over the estate, I found Jonathan waiting by our car. "Ready to go home?" he asked. "Almost." I walked to the garden where Gabriel and I had once exchanged vows. The flowers were different now, but the view was the same. I took off my mother's necklace, looking at it one last time. "What are you doing?" Jonathan asked. "Keeping my promise to Mom, letting it be over." I placed the necklace on a garden bench. Someone else might need it more now. Andrea appeared beside me. "The reporters are gone. My parents are handling the guests." "And you?" She managed a small smile. "I'm going to take some time. Travel. Maybe actually run those foundations properly." "You're stronger than you know," I told her. "Thanks to you." She hugged me quickly. "Though next time, maybe just send an email?" We all laughed, the sound carrying across the empty garden. As we walked away, I glanced back one last time. The necklace glinted in the fading light, a reminder of both what was lost and what was gained. "Italy tomorrow?" Jonathan asked as we drove away. "Italy tomorrow," I agreed. "I hear it's beautiful this time of year." Behind us, the estate grew smaller in the rearview mirror, along with the last remnants of Gabriel's power over my life. Ahead lay freedom, justice, and finally, peace. Vengeance was a river, but beyond its banks lay the future I had shaped. The Italian sun warmed my face as I sat in a small cafe in Florence, reading the news on my tablet. "Gabriel Myers pleads guilty to multiple fraud charges," the headline declared. My phone buzzed. "Elisa." "Have you seen it?" she asked without preamble. Reading it now? 20 years? Plus full restitution to all investors. The judge wasn't playing around. She paused. Andrea's testimony sealed it. When she revealed how he'd planned to use her family's foundation money. How is she? Good, actually. She's restructuring the foundations, doing amazing work. Says she owes you a coffee when you're back. The waiter brought my espresso as Jonathan joined me at the table, fresh from his morning run. Elisa? He mouthed. I nodded. The office misses you, she continued, though that new corporate fraud division you started before leaving is keeping us busy. That's the point. I smiled. Every predator needs a predator. After hanging up, I showed Jonathan the article. He read it quietly, then reached for my hand. How do you feel? Before I could answer, my mother's FaceTime call came through. Her face filled the screen, kitchen visible behind her. Did you see? She asked. It's finally over. Not over, I corrected, just transformed into something better. Speaking of transformation, Jonathan pulled out an envelope. Remember that property we looked at yesterday? The old villa? The one that needs complete renovation? What about it? He slid papers across the table. It's ours, or it can be if you want it. I stared at the deed. You didn't think about it. A European office for the firm, focusing on international corporate fraud cases, helping other people fight back against the Gabriels of the world. Mom was still on FaceTime, beaming. Say yes, sweetheart. You've spent enough time looking backward. Time to build something new. My phone buzzed again. A text from Andrea. Just testified. It's done. Thank you for showing me the way out. And the way forward. I looked at the deed, at Jonathan's hopeful face, at my mother's proud smile on the screen. The morning sun caught my wedding ring. Not the one Gabriel had given me, but the one Jonathan had slipped on my finger, promising to support my dreams, not cage them. Well, Jonathan prompted. The villa needs a lot of work, I said slowly. The foundation's crumbling, the wiring's ancient, but the bones are good. He grinned, like someone else I know. You're impossible. But I was already reaching for the pen. That's why you love me. He watched me sign. So, partner, ready to build something new? Mom wiped tears from her eyes. Your father would be so proud, honey. Not just of what you accomplished, but of who you've become. Speaking of becoming, Jonathan's voice turned serious. There's something else we need to discuss. He pulled out another envelope. Inside was a sonogram. The doctor called while you were having breakfast, he said softly. Everything looks perfect. My hand flew to my stomach, still flat, but containing a secret we'd been afraid to hope for. After what happened with Gabriel, I'd thought this dream was dead too. Mom? My voice shook. You're going to be a grandmother. Her joyful sob echoed through the phone. Oh, my baby. We're thinking of naming her Susan, Jonathan said, after her grandmother who taught her mother about karma and patience. Mom couldn't speak, just nodded through her tears. After ending the call, I looked out over Florence's ancient streets. Somewhere in America, Gabriel sat in a cell, his empire in ruins. But here, under the Tuscan sun, new life was blooming. In my body, in the villa we would transform, in the work we would do. You know what this means? Jonathan asked, hand resting on mine. What? We're going to need a bigger office in that villa, for the little one's playroom. I laughed, really laughed, the sound echoing off centuries-old stones. One project at a time. Says the woman who took down a corporate criminal while planning an international expansion. True. I picked up my espresso. To new beginnings? To karma, he countered. And to the beautiful warrior who helped it along. The morning sun painted Florence gold, promising endless possibilities. Gabriel had taught me about endings, but Jonathan had shown me the power of beginnings. Now, with our child growing beneath my heart and a new mission taking shape, I finally understood. The best revenge wasn't destruction. It was creation. To the future, I said. raising my cup. All of it.
The call that changed everything came on a Tuesday morning, right after I discovered the texts on Todd's phone. I remember standing in our kitchen, our perfect granite-countered kitchen that we'd renovated together last spring, staring at his unlocked phone while my coffee grew cold. "Hey baby, can't wait to see you tonight. Mara's working late again, so we'll have plenty of time." My hands trembled as I scrolled through hundreds of messages between my husband and my best friend Peyton. 3 years of friendship, weekend brunches, and shared vacations, all while they laughed behind my back. I'm Mara, and this is how I learned that karma works in mysterious ways. "Mara, are you still there?" The voice on my phone pulled me back to reality. It was Connor from business development at Maxwell Corp, where I'd interviewed last week. "Yes, sorry," I cleared my throat. "I'm here." "Great news. The VP position is yours if you want it. We need someone with your expertise in digital transformation." I glanced at Todd's phone again, at the evidence of my collapsing marriage. "When can I start?" "That's what I like to hear. Monday work for you?" Before I could respond, I heard Todd's key in the front door. "I'll call you back in 5 minutes, Connor." Todd walked in, all 6 feet of handsome betrayal in an expensive suit. "Hey honey, you're home early." He froze when he saw his phone in my hand. "Looking for this?" I held it up, my voice steadier than I felt. "Peyton must be wondering why you haven't responded to her good morning text." The color drained from his face. "Mara, I can explain." "Save it." I tossed his phone onto the counter. 3 years, Todd? With my best friend? It just happened. We never meant to. To what? To hurt me? To destroy our marriage? To make me look like an idiot? My laugh sounded hollow, even to my own ears. "You're never home anymore," he shot back. "Always at the office, always working. Peyton was there for me. Don't you dare make this my fault." I grabbed my purse from the counter. "I was working to build our future while you were destroying our present." My phone buzzed. Peyton's name flashed on the screen. Of course. Todd must have texted her. I answered on speaker. "Hey bestie, calling to check if the coast is clear?" "Mara." Peyton's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. We never meant for this to happen." "Funny how you both use the same lines. Must be all that practice talking to each other behind my back." "You don't understand," Todd interjected. "Your career always came first. You left us no choice." "No choice?" I whirled on him. "You had every choice. You could have talked to me, could have told me you were unhappy. Instead, you chose to sleep with my best friend." My phone buzzed again, Connor calling back about the job offer. In that moment, everything crystallized. You know what? Keep each other. You deserve each other. I headed for the door, then turned back. But remember this moment, both of you. Remember how you thought I was too focused on my career, too ambitious, too driven. Because I promise you'll remember it for a very long time. "What's that supposed to mean?" Todd called after me. I answered Connor's call as I walked out. "Connor, I'll take the job, and I'm not waiting until Monday. I'll start tomorrow." Todd followed me onto the driveway. "Mara, where are you going? We need to talk about this." I got into my car and rolled down the window. "I'm going to my sister's. Have your things out by the weekend? And Peyton?" I knew she could hear me through the phone, still clutched in Todd's hand. "Don't forget to pick up your stuff from my house. All those friendship bracelets we made, the photo albums, the matching coffee mugs. I'll leave them in garbage bags by the curb." As I drove away, I caught Todd's reflection in my rearview mirror, standing in our driveway looking lost. My phone lit up with messages from both of them, but I ignored them. Instead, I called my sister Erin. "Hey sis, got room for a house guest?" "Always. What's wrong? You sound weird." "I just caught Todd cheating with Peyton." "What? Those bastards? I'm opening wine right now. Come over." I smiled despite everything. "Thanks. Oh, and one more thing. I just accepted a VP position at Maxwell Corp." "Wait, what? In the same 5 minutes?" "Yep, funny how life works sometimes, isn't it?" As I drove toward Erin's house, my hands finally stopped shaking. The pain was still there, raw and burning, but something else was growing alongside it, determination. They thought I was too career-focused, too ambitious. Well, they hadn't seen anything yet. 3 months into my new job at Maxwell Corp, I was already making waves. My office overlooked the city skyline, a daily reminder of how far I'd come since that Tuesday morning when everything fell apart. "You're not going to believe what I just heard," Erin announced, barging into my office during lunch. She dropped into the chair across from my desk, practically vibrating with news. What now? I asked, not looking up from my laptop. Todd and Peyton's new consulting firm? It's tanking. They lost their biggest client yesterday. My fingers froze over the keyboard. How do you know? Small world. My colleague's husband works there. Or worked there, I should say. They had to let go of half their staff this morning. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. I shouldn't care. But you do, Erin said, pulling out her lunch. And that's okay. You're human. A human who's their competition now, I reminded her, closing my laptop. Maxwell Corp just landed the Anderson account, the same one they were pursuing. Erin's eyes widened. No way, that's deliciously karmic. Ms. Johnston? Nancy from HR appeared in my doorway. The board meeting's been moved up to 2 o'clock. Thanks, Nancy, I'll be ready. I turned back to Erin. Speaking of work, I need to prep for this meeting. Connor and I are presenting our expansion strategy. Before I go, Erin said, gathering her things, promise me something? What? Don't let revenge become your whole life. You're doing amazing things here, but make sure you're doing them for yourself, not to spite them. I was about to protest when my phone buzzed, a text from Peyton. My first instinct was to delete it unread, but curiosity won out. Mara, please, we need to talk. Things aren't what you think. Delete it, Erin advised, reading over my shoulder. Nothing good comes from engaging. Instead, I typed back, things are exactly what I think. Good luck with the business. That's not engaging. Erin raised an eyebrow. That's closing a door, I corrected her, standing up to gather my presentation materials. Later that afternoon, I stood before the board, presenting our digital transformation strategy. Connor sat nearby, nodding encouragingly. Our research shows that by implementing these changes, we can increase efficiency by 40% while reducing costs by 25%, I explained, clicking through my slides. The Anderson account is just the beginning. Impressive work, Mara, the CEO commented after I finished. This is exactly why we brought you on board. As I walked back to my office, Connor caught up with me. Hey, heard about Todd and Peyton's company troubles. You okay? I stopped walking. How does everyone know about this? Business circles are small in this city, he shrugged. Plus, I may have kept tabs on them, for competitive reasons. Right, competitive reasons. I smiled despite myself. Listen, he said, lowering his voice. There's something else you should know. Word is they're trying to arrange a meeting with Maxwell Corp's subsidiary in hopes of a bailout. My stomach dropped. They wouldn't dare. They might not know you work here, he pointed out. Not everyone follows LinkedIn updates. Back in my office, I called Nancy. Can you pull the records of any meeting requests from Palmer Consulting Group? Already on it, she replied. They're scheduled for next week with the subsidiary's management team. Want me to block it? I thought for a moment. No, let it happen. But make sure I'm copied on all correspondence. That evening, as I worked late, some habits die hard, another text came through, this time from Todd. Mara, I know you're probably enjoying this, but people's livelihoods are at stake. We need help. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Funny how consequences work, isn't it? My phone immediately rang. Todd calling. I declined the call and packed up my things, suddenly eager to leave the office. On my drive home, Erin's words from earlier echoed in my head. Was I letting revenge consume me? Maybe. But watching them struggle while I succeeded felt like justice served on a silver platter. My phone rang again. This time it was Alyssa, my mentor from my previous job. I hear you're making quite a name for yourself, she said when I answered. News travels fast. It does when you're doing things right. But remember what I taught you. Success is the best revenge, but only if you don't let it poison you in the process. I pulled into my driveway, looking up at my new house, smaller than the one I'd shared with Todd, but all mine. I know, I replied, but what if I'm good at both? Success and revenge. Alyssa's laugh crackled through the speaker. Then make sure you're excellent at both. Just don't lose yourself in the process. I ended the call and sat in my car, watching the sunset. Tomorrow I'd start planning for that subsidiary meeting. After all, karma needed a little help sometimes. The annual Business Leadership Conference was the last place I expected to see Peyton. Yet there she was, hovering near the coffee station in a navy blue suit that I'm pretty sure used to be mine. Heads up, Connor muttered, appearing at my elbow. Your past is getting coffee at 2 o'clock. I see her, I replied, straightening my shoulders. Did you get the contract signed? Better than that, he grinned, passing me a folder. They're giving us full control of the digital transformation project. Budget's been increased by 30%. I flipped through the papers, a smile spreading across my face. This is huge, Connor. The subsidiary won't know what hit them. Speaking of hitting, he nodded toward Peyton, who was now making her way toward us. I braced myself for the encounter, but she veered off at the last moment, disappearing into the crowd. Ms. Johnston? Nancy approached quickly, tablet in hand. The subsidiary CEO just confirmed the meeting for next week. They're bringing their entire consulting team. Perfect. I handed her the folder. Get this processed immediately. I want everything in place before that meeting. Already on it. Oh, and Nancy hesitated. Todd called the office again, 3 times this morning. Let me guess. Still trying to move up the meeting? She nodded. He's getting desperate. Good. I checked my watch. Time for my keynote speech. Wish me luck. As I made my way to the stage, I caught glimpses of Peyton in the audience, phone pressed to her ear. Probably updating Todd on my presence here. Let them worry. Digital transformation isn't just about technology, I began, addressing the packed conference room. It's about adaptation, survival, and sometimes... I paused, making brief eye contact with Peyton, knowing when to step aside and let stronger players take the lead. The presentation went flawlessly. As I fielded questions afterward, I noticed Peyton scribbling furiously in her notebook, studying the competition, no doubt. Brilliant speech, a familiar voice said as the crowd dispersed. I turned to find Alyssa standing there, elegant as ever in her signature red blazer. Alyssa, I didn't know you were attending. Couldn't miss my protégé's big moment. She linked her arm through mine, leading me away from the stage. Though I notice you've developed quite an edge since we last spoke. Is that a bad thing? Depends on how you use it. She stopped walking, turning to face me. That dig about stronger players? A bit obvious, don't you think? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Aaron. SOS. Todd just showed up at my office looking for you. He knows about the subsidiary deal. Excuse me, I said to Alyssa, quickly typing back, on my way. I found Aaron in the lobby of her office building, looking frazzled. He just left. He was not happy. What exactly did he say? That you're deliberately sabotaging their company. That you knew they were counting on the subsidiary contract to save their business. She ran a hand through her hair. Are you? They did this to themselves, I replied, but my voice lacked conviction. Mara. Aaron's tone held a warning. My phone rang. Connor again. Sorry, I need to take this. We've got a situation, he said without preamble. Peyton's been hired by one of our biggest clients. She starts next week. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Which client? Anderson, the one we just signed. Apparently she interviewed weeks ago, before their company started tanking. They just pushed through her paperwork. I ended the call and looked at Aaron, who was watching me with concern. Remember when you said karma works in mysterious ways? Yeah? Well, it just got a lot more mysterious. I showed her the text from Connor explaining the situation. Oh my God, she breathed. What are you going to do? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Todd. Just heard about Peyton's new job. Guess you'll have to deal with us whether you like it or not. I deleted his message and turned to Aaron. I'm going to do what I do best. I'm going to lead. And if that leadership happens to make certain people very uncomfortable? I shrugged. That's just business. Back at the office, Nancy was waiting with more news. The Anderson team wants to move up Peyton's start date. They want her involved in the digital transformation project immediately. I sat down at my desk, a plan already forming. Tell them that works perfectly with our timeline. Are you sure? Nancy asked carefully. Given the history? I'm sure. I pulled up my calendar. Schedule a team meeting for tomorrow morning. It's time to brief everyone on our new situation. As I stared out my office window at the setting sun, I couldn't help but smile. They thought they knew what I was capable of. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. The Anderson team's conference room felt smaller than usual as I waited for Peyton's arrival. Nancy sat beside me, reviewing personnel files, while Connor paced by the window. Stop pacing, I said. You're making me nervous. I'm not the one who should be nervous, he replied, checking his watch. She's late. Of course she is. I straightened the papers in front of me. She always did like to make an entrance. Right on cue, the door opened. Peyton walked in, followed by two Anderson executives. She froze mid-step when she saw me, her professional smile faltering. "Welcome to the team," I said, standing. "Please, take a seat." Peyton's face went through several emotions before settling on forced composure. "Mara, I didn't realize you were involved with this project. As VP of Digital Transformation at Maxwell Corp, I'm involved with all our major projects." I gestured to the empty chairs. "Shall we begin?" The Anderson executives, oblivious to the tension, launched into their introduction. I watched Peyton try to focus on their words while shooting panicked glances at her phone under the table. "Ms. Gray will be leading our internal team," one executive explained. "We're excited about the fresh perspective she'll bring." "Fresh perspective is always valuable," I agreed, meeting Peyton's eyes, though experience tends to win out in the end. Nancy cleared her throat. "Perhaps we should review the project timeline?" For the next hour, we discussed milestones and deliverables. Peyton contributed little, her earlier confidence replaced by uncharacteristic silence. My phone vibrated. A text from Todd. "You planned this, didn't you? You knew about her job offer." I ignored it and continued the meeting. "We'll need daily progress reports from all team leads. That includes you, Peyton. I trust that won't be a problem?" "No," she said tightly. "No problem at all." After the meeting, Peyton lingered behind as others filed out. "Can we talk?" "We are talking. Privately," she insisted. I nodded to Nancy and Connor, who reluctantly left us alone. "You have to recuse yourself from this project," Peyton said as soon as the door closed. "This is a conflict of interest." "Is it? I'm not the one who created conflicts in this relationship." "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you and Todd went behind my back for 3 years? We never meant to hurt me. Yes, I know. You've said that before." I gathered my files. "But here's what you need to understand. This isn't about hurting you. This is business. I earned my position here. If you can't handle working under my leadership, you're welcome to resign." Her phone buzzed again, Todd's name flashing on the screen. "He's worried about you sabotaging my career." "Your career choices aren't my responsibility." I headed for the door. "Though I find it interesting that Todd's so concerned about your career when his own company is failing." Back in my office, I found Erin waiting. Saw Peyton in the lobby. She looked shell-shocked. "Good." "Mara, don't start," I warned. "This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about proving I'm better at this game than they ever thought I could be." My phone rang. Alyssa calling. "I heard about your interesting situation," she said when I answered. "How are you handling it?" "Professionally." "Really? Because I also heard about the meeting just now. Experience tends to win out in the end?" I sighed. "You have spies everywhere, don't you?" "I have concerns everywhere," she corrected. "Don't let this situation compromise who you are as a leader." After hanging up, I noticed an email from the Anderson executives, praising how I handled the meeting and requesting an accelerated timeline for the project. "Nancy," I called out, "schedule daily check-ins with Peyton's team. I want to be involved in every aspect of this project." "Already done," she replied, appearing in my doorway. "Though you should know, Todd's downstairs in the lobby, demanding to see you." I walked to my window, spotting him pacing below. "Let him wait." "For how long?" "Until he realizes that he's not in control anymore." I turned back to my desk. "And Nancy, make sure security knows he's not to be allowed up." My phone buzzed with another text from Todd. "You can't ignore me forever. We need to talk about this situation." I typed back, "Actually, I can ignore you, and I will. Any concerns about the project can be addressed through proper channels." Erin appeared again. "You know this is going to get messy, right?" "It already was messy," I replied, watching Todd finally leave the lobby. "The difference is, now I'm the one holding all the cards." "And what are you going to do with them?" I smiled, thinking about tomorrow's first daily check-in with Peyton's team. "I'm going to play them perfectly, one by one, until they realize exactly what they lost when they underestimated me." The first week of daily check-ins with Peyton's team was going exactly as planned until Todd's bombshell dropped during Thursday's meeting. As you can see from the metrics, Peyton was presenting, her voice steady despite the dark circles under her eyes. "We're already ahead of schedule on the first phase." "Impressive," I noted, considering your team's initial resistance to our methodology. Before she could respond, Nancy burst into the conference room. Mara, you need to see this. She handed me her tablet, open to a business news website. The headline made my blood run cold. Maxwell Corp subsidiary in talks to acquire Palmer Consulting Group. Meeting adjourned, I announced, standing abruptly. Peyton, stay. Once everyone else had filed out, I turned the tablet to face her. Did you know about this? Her face showed genuine surprise. No, Todd didn't tell me anything. Don't lie to me. Not again. I'm not lying. She ran her hands through her hair in frustration. Todd and I aren't exactly speaking right now. That caught me off guard. What? After I got this job, things changed. He became obsessed with using my position here to save his company. I refused. She laughed bitterly. Ironic, isn't it? He left you for me because you were too focused on your career, and now... My phone rang, Todd's name flashing on the screen. This time I answered. Surprised. His voice held a smugness I remembered all too well. How long have you been planning this? Long enough. Did you really think I didn't know you worked for Maxwell when I approached their subsidiary? He paused. I learned from the best, after all. You taught me the importance of strategic thinking. You son of a... Now, he interrupted. Is that any way to talk to your future business partner? I ended the call and turned to Peyton. What else don't I know? He's been planning this for months, she admitted. It's why we've been fighting. He wanted me to feed him information about Maxwell's operations. And did you? No, that's why we're not speaking. She stood up, gathering her things. I made one mistake, Mara. One horrible, unforgivable mistake. I won't make another. My phone buzzed with a text from Connor. Emergency board meeting in 10 minutes. They know about Todd's plan. Go home, Peyton, I said. Take the rest of the day. What are you going to do? My job. I headed for the door. Oh, and Peyton, thank you for telling me the truth. Finally. The board meeting was tense. I stood at the front of the room, facing the concerned faces of Maxwell's leadership team. This acquisition cannot happen, I stated firmly. Palmer Consulting Group is failing for a reason. Their methodologies are outdated, their client base is shrinking, and their leadership is compromised. You have personal history with the company's CEO, one board member noted. Yes, which gives me unique insight into their operations. I pulled up my presentation, and I can prove why this acquisition would be disastrous. For the next hour, I laid out every flaw in Todd's company, every failed project, every lost client. When I finished, the room was silent. Impressive analysis, the CEO finally said, but the subsidiary seems determined. Then let me handle the negotiations, I proposed. I know Todd's playbook. I can protect Maxwell's interests. My phone lit up with another text from Todd. Board meeting over yet? Ready to discuss terms? Before I could respond, Peyton called. Against my better judgment, I answered. There's something else you should know, she said without preamble. Todd's been falsifying his company's financial reports. I just found proof on his laptop. I put the phone on speaker. Say that again, for the board. After Peyton finished explaining, complete with details about where to find the evidence, the CEO stood up. Ms. Johnston, how would you like to handle this? I smiled, thinking of Todd's smug voice earlier. I think it's time we arrange that meeting he's so desperate for. Later that evening, as I prepared for tomorrow's confrontation, Erin called. Heard about Todd's master plan, she said. You okay? Better than okay, I replied, reviewing the documents Peyton had sent over. He thought he was playing chess, but he didn't realize he was using checkers pieces. Just be careful. When people get desperate, I know. I looked at my phone, where another text from Todd waited unread. But he forgot one important thing. What's that? I'm not the same woman he betrayed, and tomorrow he's going to learn exactly what that means. Todd strutted into Maxwell Corp's conference room like he still owned the world. That confidence lasted exactly 3 minutes and 27 seconds. Before we begin, I said, sliding folders across the table to him and his lawyers, you might want to review these documents. His smirk faltered as he opened the folder. I watched the color drain from his face as he flipped through the pages. Where did you get these? He demanded. Does it matter? They're your company's real financial reports, not the doctored versions you've been showing potential investors. His lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently in his ear. Todd's jaw clenched. "This is a private meeting," he said. "Ask everyone else to leave." "No," I replied simply. "Nancy, please read the minutes from our last board meeting." Nancy cleared her throat. "Motion to reject all acquisition talks with Palmer Consulting Group, passed unanimously. Additional motion to pursue fraud charges if necessary, also passed." Todd slammed his hand on the table. "You can't do this." "I already have." I stood up. "Your company isn't worth acquiring, Todd. It never was. You've been running it into the ground for months, hiding losses and falsifying reports." "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" he snarled. "Actually, no. I'm just doing my job." I nodded to security waiting outside. "These gentlemen will escort you out. Oh, and Todd, the SEC will be very interested in those documents." As security led them away, my phone buzzed with a text from Peyton. "Just heard what happened. Thank you for not mentioning my involvement." I typed back, "You did the right thing, eventually." Connor appeared in the doorway. "That was impressive. Brutal, but impressive." "It wasn't personal," I said, gathering my things. "It was business." "Right," he smirked. "Nothing personal about destroying your ex-husband's company. His choices destroyed his company. I just exposed them." Back in my office, I found Nancy waiting with more news. Peyton's requested a transfer to another project team. "Denied," I said, sitting down. "She stays where she is." "Are you sure that's wise?" "She's good at her job, Nancy. Despite everything else, she's actually delivering results." My phone rang. Aaron calling. "Just saw Todd being escorted out by security. You okay?" "I'm fine, but he's not." I looked out my window, watching Todd's car speed away from the parking lot. His lawyer's face when he saw those documents. "I don't think Todd's getting out of this one." "Good," Aaron said firmly. "He deserves—" A commotion outside my office interrupted her. Peyton burst in looking frantic. "I'll call you back," I told Aaron. "Todd's threatening to drag me down with him." Peyton blurted out. "He says he has proof I knew about the false reports." "Did you?" "No, I only found out recently, I swear." She collapsed into a chair. "But he's desperate, Mara. He'll say anything to save himself." I studied her for a moment. The woman who had been my best friend, who had betrayed me in the worst way possible, now looked completely broken. "Forward me any threatening messages he's sent you," I said finally. "My lawyers will handle it." She looked up, surprised. "You'd do that, after everything?" "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do." I turned back to my computer. "Now, don't you have a project meeting to prepare for?" After she left, Nancy came in again. "The Anderson executives are thrilled with the project's progress. They're talking about expanding our contract." "Good. Set up a meeting for next week." I paused. "And Nancy, thank you for having my back through all of this." She smiled. "You know, when you first started here, I thought you were just another ambitious executive with something to prove. I was wrong. You're an ambitious executive who actually delivers." My phone buzzed with another text from Todd. "This isn't over. You have no idea what I'm capable of." I showed it to Nancy. "What do you think?" "I think he's about to find out what you're capable of." She headed for the door. "Want me to forward that to legal?" "Please." I looked at the time. "And call Peyton's team. Let's move up tomorrow's project review. If Todd wants to play hardball, let's show him how it's done." That evening, as I packed up to leave, Alyssa called. "Heard about today's excitement," she said. "How does it feel?" "Different than I expected," I admitted. "Less satisfying, more necessary." "That's called growth," she laughed. "You're not acting from a place of revenge anymore. You're leading." I thought about Todd's threat, about Peyton's fear, about the project's success. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said. "I actually have them both to thank for this. If they hadn't betrayed me, I might never have pushed myself this far. Now that," Alyssa said, "is what real victory looks like." The day of the final project presentation arrived with unexpected news. Nancy burst into my office just as I was reviewing my slides. "Todd's been arrested," she announced, tablet in hand. "SEC agents picked him up this morning." I sat down slowly. "What are the charges?" "Securities fraud, falsifying business records, and—" She scrolled through the article. "Attempting to blackmail a corporate officer." "Peyton," I breathed. Yes, apparently he tried to frame her for everything. Nancy looked up. The presentation starts in 20 minutes. Should we postpone? No, I said, standing. We've worked too hard for this. Get everyone to the conference room. The Anderson executives were already seated when I arrived. Peyton sat in the corner, pale but composed, her presentation materials ready. Before we begin, I addressed the room, I want to acknowledge the news about Palmer Consulting Group. I assure you it has no bearing on our project or its success. Peyton stood up. If I may? At my nod, she continued. I know many of you have questions about my involvement. I want to be clear. I chose to do the right thing, even though it was late in coming. The success of this project has been my only focus. The room was silent for a moment before one of the Anderson executives spoke. Well said. Shall we proceed? For the next hour, we presented our results. The digital transformation had exceeded all expectations, with efficiency gains of 45% and cost reductions of 30%. Remarkable work, the CEO of Anderson commented. Both the results and how you handled recent complications. My phone buzzed. A text from Aaron. Todd's being denied bail. Lawyers say he's looking at serious time. Ms. Johnston, one executive said, drawing my attention back. We'd like to discuss expanding this transformation across all our subsidiaries. Before I could respond, Peyton stepped forward. If I may make a suggestion, Ms. Johnston has developed a methodology that could revolutionize how we approach this expansion. I looked at her, surprised by the endorsement. Go on, the CEO encouraged. As Peyton outlined my strategy, I received another text, this time from Melissa. Saw the news. Time for our talk? The meeting concluded with handshakes and promises of future collaboration. As everyone filed out, Peyton lingered. Thank you, she said quietly, for not throwing me under the bus with Todd. You did that yourself by choosing to be honest finally. I know it doesn't make up for anything, but... No, I interrupted. It doesn't, but it's a start. Nancy appeared in the doorway. Mara, Alyssa's waiting in your office. I found Alyssa sitting in my chair, looking out at the city skyline. Quite a view you've earned yourself? Earned being the operative word. She turned to face me. So, Todd's arrested, your project's a success, and your former best friend just publicly endorsed you. How does vindication feel? Different than I imagined, I admitted, sitting across from her. Because revenge wasn't really what you wanted, was it? Before I could answer, my phone rang. A call from the prison. Todd. I put it on speaker. Mara, his voice cracked. Please, you have to help me. Tell them I didn't mean to. Goodbye, Todd. I ended the call. Alyssa raised an eyebrow. That was new. What do you mean? The old Mara would have lectured him, rubbed it in. This Mara just let go. Nancy knocked on the door. Sorry to interrupt, but the board wants to see you. They're talking about a promotion. After she left, Alyssa stood up. Well? Well, what? What are you going to do now? You've achieved your revenge, surpassed your goals, and proven everyone wrong. What's next? I looked at the city sprawling below, at the empire I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. Now? I smiled. Now I lead. Not because of them, not to spite them, but because it's what I was always meant to do. My phone buzzed with a message from Peyton. Heading to give my statement to the SEC. Thank you for showing me what real leadership looks like. You know, Alyssa said, reading over my shoulder, sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about becoming so successful they become irrelevant, I finished. She nodded approvingly. Now that's the leader I always knew you could be. As I headed to the board meeting, I deleted Todd's number from my phone. Some chapters needed to stay closed. The future wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about something much more powerful. Success on my own terms. The morning newspaper sat on my desk. Todd's sentencing making headlines. Tech CEO gets 7 years for fraud. I closed the browser tab without reading further. Your 9 o'clock is here, Nancy announced from the doorway of my new corner office. And Aaron's online too. I picked up the phone. Hey sis, have you seen the news? I've seen enough. I shuffled through some papers. How about we talk about your promotion instead? Fine, change the subject, she laughed. But seriously, running the new digital division at Anderson, I still can't believe it. Believe it. You earned it. I glanced at my watch. Gotta go. Dinner tonight? Wouldn't miss it. My 9 o'clock turned out to be Peyton, looking professional but nervous in a charcoal suit. Thanks for meeting with me, she said, taking a seat. I wanted to tell you in person I'm leaving Anderson. I know. The Silicon Valley offer? She nodded. How did you? I wrote your recommendation letter. Her eyes widened. You what? You did good work, Peyton. Despite everything else, you proved yourself professionally. I leaned back in my chair. The past is the past. I don't deserve your forgiveness. This isn't forgiveness. It's closure. I stood up. Good luck in California. After she left, Connor poked his head in. Ready for the board meeting? They're expecting big things from their new CEO. They'll get them. I gathered my materials. How's the merger going? Smooth sailing. Palmer Consulting's clients are transitioning well to our services. Good. I paused at the door. Any word from Todd's old partner? Took the plea deal. He's testifying against Todd and the other pending cases. In the boardroom, I took my place at the head of the table. The familiar faces looked to me expectantly. No longer with skepticism, but with trust earned through results. Before we begin, I said, I want to address the elephant in the room. Yes, my ex-husband was sentenced today. No, it doesn't affect our operations. And yes, we're still on track to exceed our quarterly projections by 20%. The tension in the room dissolved into appreciative chuckles. Now, I continued pulling up my presentation. Let's talk about our international expansion. Halfway through the meeting, my phone lit up with a text from Alyssa. Lunch? We need to celebrate. Celebrate what? I typed back during a break. You, the real you, finally running things your way. After the board meeting, I found Nancy waiting with more news. The Anderson CEO called. They want to fast-track the joint venture. Schedule it for next week. I checked my calendar. And Nancy, take the afternoon off. You've earned it. So have you, she replied with a knowing smile. At lunch, Alyssa raised her glass. To karma. To hard work, I corrected her. Karma just helped point me in the right direction. Speaking of direction, she set down her glass. I hear you've been mentoring some young executives. Someone once taught me the importance of lifting others up. And now look at you, CEO, industry leader, and finally free from the weight of revenge. My phone buzzed. A message from Todd's lawyer about signing some final paperwork. I deleted it without reading further. You know what the best part is? I said to Alyssa. I don't feel anything anymore. No anger, no satisfaction in their downfall, nothing. They're just irrelevant. That's called healing. Back at the office, I found Erin waiting. Couldn't wait for dinner. Had to see my big sister, the CEO, in her new office. How does it feel being an executive yourself? I asked. Terrifying, exciting. She grinned. Everything you said it would be. You'll be amazing. I looked out at the city skyline. My view now even better from the top floor. We both will. Remember when you said karma works in mysterious ways? I was wrong, I replied. Karma doesn't work in mysterious ways. It works exactly as it should, rewarding hard work, integrity, and perseverance. And punishing those who deserve it? They punish themselves. I just succeeded despite them. My assistant knocked, reminding me of my next meeting. Before heading out, I took one last look at my office, at the evidence of everything I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. Ready? Erin asked. I smiled, thinking of how far we'd both come. More than ready. This is just the beginning. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting ahead. And never looking back.
The day my family discovered I was a stripper started like any other Tuesday. I was counting my tips from the night before when my mother's number flashed across my phone screen. That call changed everything. My name is Violet, and I never planned on taking my clothes off for money. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. I was 22, struggling through my final year of college and drowning in student debt when my roommate Gianna suggested dancing at the Pearl. Mum, I can explain, I said, my voice trembling as I gripped the phone. Explain? Explain? Her voice cracked with rage. Mrs. Peterson saw you at that disgusting establishment. Do you know what this will do to our family's reputation? I closed my eyes, feeling my world crumble. Mrs. Peterson, our neighbour whose daughter I used to babysit. Of course she'd run straight to my mother. I needed the money for school, I said quietly. The writing program. The writing program. That useless degree you insisted on pursuing instead of law school? She was practically screaming now. Get home now! Your father needs to hear this directly from you. 2 hours later, I stood in our pristine living room, facing my parents and my brother Andre. Mom sat rigid on her favorite armchair, while Dad paced by the fireplace. Andre leaned against the wall, his expression unreadable. How long? Dad's voice was ice cold. 8 months. Mom let out a strangled sob. 8 months of prostituting yourself? I'm not a prostitute, I shot back, anger finally breaking through my fear. I dance. I pay my bills. I maintain a 4.0 GPA. I haven't asked you for a single penny since you cut off my tuition. Because we refused to fund that ridiculous writing degree. Mom sprang to her feet. We had your life planned out perfectly. Law school, then joining your father's firm. But no, you had to chase some childish dream of becoming an author. Andre finally spoke up. Mom, maybe we should stay out of this. Both our parents snapped simultaneously. I looked at my brother, seeing the conflict in his eyes. He'd always been the good child, following the path our parents laid out. Now he was a junior partner at Dad's firm, living the life they'd wanted for me. I'm not ashamed, I said firmly, though my hands were shaking. I work hard, I'm safe, and I'm paying my own way through school. Dad stopped pacing. No daughter of mine will be a stripper. The finality in his voice made my blood run cold. Then I guess I'm not your daughter anymore, I whispered. Mom gasped. You don't mean that. No, Mom, you don't mean that. You're the ones making this choice. I turned to face them all. I'm adult enough to make my own decisions, and I'm adult enough to live with the consequences. Violet, Andre stepped forward, but Dad held up his hand. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. Dad's words fell like hammer blows. We will not have this shame in our family. I looked at each of them. Mom's tears, Dad's stone face, Andre's helpless expression. Years of conditional love and impossible expectations crystallized in that moment. Goodbye then, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. I hope your reputation was worth it. I walked out of that house with nothing but my car keys and the clothes on my back. Gianna was waiting in her beat-up Honda around the corner. I'd texted her on the way over, knowing I might need an escape plan. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a fierce hug. Your room at my place is ready. We'll get through this. That night, curled up on Gianna's spare mattress, I made myself a promise. I would prove them all wrong. I would turn their shame into my success. I would make my childish dream of becoming an author reality. You okay? Gianna asked from the doorway. I wiped my eyes and sat up. No, but I will be. I'm working double shifts at the Pearl this week. I need to make up for the textbooks I left behind. And you're writing? I'm not giving up on that either. I managed a small smile. Maybe this will give me something real to write about. Gianna nodded, understanding in her eyes. Good, because the world needs to hear your voice, not their expectations. As I lay back down, I thought about the manuscript hidden on my laptop. A story about a girl breaking free from golden handcuffs. It had felt like fiction when I started it. Now it was my reality. Tomorrow I would dance. I would write. I would survive. And someday I would thrive. Not despite their rejection, but because of it. They thought they were writing the end of my story. They didn't realize they were only writing the beginning. And that's when the stripper pole broke. I finished my story, and the audience erupted in laughter. The bookstore was packed, standing room only, with readers clutching copies of my latest bestseller, Dancing Through Darkness. 6 years had passed since that Tuesday when my family cast me out. Now, at 28, I was living a life they couldn't have imagined for me, or maybe just couldn't have accepted. Ms. Violet, a young woman raised her hand during the Q&A. How much of your success do you attribute to your past experiences? I smiled, remembering the nights at the Pearl that had funded not just my degree, but my first laptop, my first apartment, and the countless writing workshops that shaped my craft. All of it, I answered honestly. Every story needs truth at its core. Mine just happens to have a few sequins and 6-inch heels mixed in. After the signing, Caden, my publisher, pulled me aside. Your numbers are through the roof. The authenticity resonates with readers. They can tell you've lived these stories. Speaking of stories, Gianna interrupted, waving her phone, you need to see this. She handed me her phone, open to a local news article. The headline made my heart stop. Murray and Associates law firm faces bankruptcy amid investment scandal. Your father's firm, Gianna said softly. Apparently they made some bad investments. Really bad. I skimmed the article, my throat tightening. The firm where my father had worked for 30 years, where Andre was now a partner, was crumbling. The family's assets were being liquidated to cover the losses. There's more. Gianna swiped to another article. Your childhood home is going on the market. The elegant Victorian house that had been my prison and paradise appeared on the screen. The same house I'd been banished from all those years ago. Violet? Caden's voice snapped me back to reality. Your car's here. We need to head to the TV interview. Right. I handed the phone back to Gianna. Thanks for showing me. In the car, Caden reviewed my talking points for the interview, but my mind kept drifting to that house. To the window seat where I'd written my first stories. To the garden where Mom had taught me about roses before appearances became more important than affection. Earth to Violet. Caden waved his hand in front of my face. You okay? The house I grew up in is for sale, I blurted out. My family's broke. Caden's eyebrows shot up. The same family that kicked me out? Yeah. I laughed, but it sounded hollow. Karma's a funny thing, isn't it? What are you thinking? I'm thinking. I paused, an idea taking shape. I'm thinking I should buy it. The house? Caden stared at me. Are you sure that's wise? My phone buzzed. A text from Andre, the first in years. I guess you heard. Mom and Dad don't know what to do. They're too proud to ask for help. Of course they are, I muttered. Violet? Caden's voice was gentle. Sometimes the best revenge is living well. You're already doing that. I turned to him. But what if this isn't about revenge? What if it's about closing a circle? Then make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. He checked his watch. We're here, ready to dazzle them. The interview went smoothly. I'd gotten good at telling my story without revealing too much. Afterward, in my apartment, I called Gianna. I need a favor, I said as soon as she answered. Can you find out who's handling the house sale? Already did, she replied. It's Mark Joseph from Premier Realty. Want his number? I grabbed a pen. You know me too well. Vi, her voice turned serious. Are you sure about this? Last time you were in that house? Last time I was in that house, I was powerless, I cut in. This time would be different. Because you'd own it. Because I've owned my story since then. I looked at the wall of my office where my first dollar from the Pearl hung next to my first published article. They wanted to write my ending. Maybe it's time I showed them who really holds the pen. Just be careful, Gianna sighed. I remember picking up the pieces last time. I'm not that broken girl anymore, I said softly. I'm not looking for their approval. I'm looking for closure, something like that. I wrote down Mark's number. Besides, wouldn't it be poetic, the stripper daughter buying the family estate? Gianna laughed. When you put it that way, it does have a certain dramatic flair. Very on brand for a best-selling author. After we hung up, I stood at my window, looking out at the city lights. The same lights that had seemed so threatening when I first started dancing now felt like old friends. I'd made my peace with my past. Maybe it was time to make peace with my future. I picked up my phone and dialed Mark's number. It was time to go home, on my terms this time. The asking price is $8.50, Mark said, leading me through the familiar front door. But given the market and their urgency to sell, we might negotiate that down. Walking into my childhood home felt like stepping into a time capsule. The same crystal chandelier hung in the foyer, though its sparkle had dimmed. Mum's precious Persian rug still covered the hardwood floors, but they were worn thin in places. The current owners have lived here for 30 years, Mark continued. not knowing he was talking about my parents. They've maintained it well, but some updates would be needed. I ran my hand along the banister, remembering how I used to slide down it when no one was watching. Tell me about these owners. Mark shuffled through his papers. Lovely couple, really. Bit proud, though. The husband's law firm hit some trouble and they're downsizing. Shame, really. They raised their children here. Children? I kept my voice neutral. 2, I believe. A son who's still in the area and a daughter who... He checked his notes. Who moved away some years ago. I bit back a bitter laugh. Moved away. That was one way to put it. The library, I said, moving down the hallway without waiting for his direction. I'd like to see it. Mark hurried after me. Oh, you know the layout? I've seen the listing photos. The library doors were closed. I hesitated for a moment before pushing them open. The smell of old books and leather hit me immediately. Dad's collection still lined the walls, each leather-bound volume perfectly aligned. This was where he'd announced my law school acceptance, an acceptance I never used. Beautiful space, Mark commented. Perfect for a home office. Or for writing, I murmured. The owners are hoping for a quick sale, Mark said, checking his phone. They need to be out within 60 days. I walked to the window seat, my old reading nook. The cushions were faded, but I could still see the small ink stain where I'd spilled my pen, writing my first short story. I'll take it, I said suddenly. Mark blinked. Don't you want to see the rest of the house? No need. I turned to face him. I'll pay asking price, all cash. But I have conditions. He pulled out a notepad, looking both surprised and pleased. Of course. First, my identity stays completely confidential until closing. Use my corporation name, Rising Phoenix Publishing, for all paperwork. He nodded, scribbling. Second, I want to close as quickly as possible, 30 days max. That shouldn't be a problem with a cash offer. And third, I took a deep breath, I want to be present when you tell them about the offer, in person. Mark frowned. That's unusual. Typically, the buyers and sellers don't meet until closing, if at all. It's non-negotiable. I met his eyes. Those are my terms. I'll need to check with the sellers, but given the offer terms, I don't foresee any objections. Back in my car, I called Gianna. Well? She answered on the first ring. I did it. My hands were shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. I'm buying the house. Holy shit. She paused. How did it feel being back there? Like walking through a museum of my past mistakes. And theirs? I started the engine. Mark's setting up a meeting to present the offer. In person. Vi. Gianna's voice held a warning. Are you sure you want to do it this way? They need to see me. Need to know that the daughter they threw away isn't just surviving. She's thriving enough to buy their house out from under them. That sounds a lot like revenge. Maybe it is. I pulled out of the driveway, looking at the house in my rearview mirror. But maybe they need to face what they did. Really face it. And what about Andre? Have you told him? I sighed. Not yet, but he'll find out soon enough. That evening, I sat in my apartment, staring at the formal offer papers Mark had emailed. My cursor hovered over the signature line. One click, and I'd set in motion something that couldn't be undone. My phone buzzed. Another text from Andre. Mom's not eating. Dad's not sleeping. I don't know how to help them. I typed back. Sometimes help comes from unexpected places. Then I signed the offer and hit send. Minutes later, Mark called. They want to meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. The sellers are eager to discuss the offer. I smiled, imagining my parents' relief at finding a quick buyer. They had no idea that their salvation would come from the very person they'd condemned. Perfect, I said. I'll be there. After hanging up, I walked to my closet and pulled out a garment bag. Inside was a designer suit I'd bought for my last book tour. Elegant, expensive, powerful. Not a sequin in sight. Tomorrow I would walk back into that house not as the shameful daughter they'd cast out, but as the successful woman I'd become. And this time, I'd be the one holding all the cards. I just hoped I was ready for what would happen when those cards hit the table. "You're pacing," Gianna said, watching me from my couch. It was 1 p.m., an hour before the meeting. "You're going to wear a hole in that expensive floor." "I can't help it." I stopped in front of my full-length mirror, adjusting my blazer for the 100th time. What if I'm making a huge mistake? "Then it's your mistake to make." She stood up and straightened my collar. "But you look like $1,000,000. Or more accurately, $850,000. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. "Sellers confirmed. Meeting in their library." "The library?" I muttered. "Of course it would be the library. Poetic, isn't it?" Gianna smiled. "Where your dad crushed your dreams of being a writer, you'll now sign the papers that make his house yours." "When you put it that way, it sounds terrible." "No," she squeezed my shoulder. "It sounds like karma." The drive to my childhood home felt surreal. I parked a block away, not wanting my parents to see my car. Mark was waiting at the corner. "Ready?" he asked, briefcase in hand. "One thing first," I said. "When we go in, let me do the revealing. Please." He nodded, though confusion crossed his face. "Your money. Your show." We walked up the familiar path to the front door. Each step felt heavier than the last. Mark rang the doorbell, and my heart nearly stopped when my mother opened the door. She looked older, tired. Her perfectly coiffed hair now showed streaks of grey. She didn't recognize me at first. I was hidden behind Mark, and 6 years had changed me considerably. "Please, come in," she said, her voice carrying that same artificial politeness I remembered. "Lawrence is waiting in the library." I kept my head down as we followed her, my heels clicking on the hardwood floors. The sound echoed through the house like a countdown. Dad sat in his leather armchair, looking smaller than I remembered. Andre stood by the window, my old reading spot. His eyes widened when he saw me, but he quickly schooled his expression. "Thank you for meeting on such short notice," Mark began, setting his briefcase on the coffee table. "As discussed, I have a buyer who's prepared to meet your asking price, all cash, with a 30-day closing." Mom sat straighter. That's wonderful news." "The buyer has requested to be present for this meeting," Mark continued, glancing at me. I stepped forward, finally lifting my head. "Hello, Mom. Dad?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's hand flew to her throat. Dad's face drained of colour. Andre looked like he might be sick. "Violet?" Mom whispered. "Surprise," I said softly, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm your buyer." Dad stood up so quickly his chair scraped against the floor. "This is some kind of joke." "No joke." I nodded to Mark, who began laying out the paperwork. "Rising Phoenix Publishing, my company, is prepared to buy this house. Full asking price, no conditions except the quick closing." "You?" Mum's voice cracked. "You have that kind of money?" Turns out writing wasn't such a useless dream after all. I met her eyes. "My 4th book just hit the bestseller list. The advance for the 5th could buy this house twice over." Andre cleared his throat. "You knew about this?" he asked Mark. Mark looked uncomfortable. "I only learned the buyer's identity yesterday. The offer is legitimate, I can assure you." "We won't sell to her," Dad declared. "You can't afford not to," I countered. "Your firm is bankrupt. Your assets are frozen. This house goes to auction in 60 days if you don't sell. Do you really want the neighbourhood watching that spectacle?" Mom flinched at the word spectacle. Always worried about appearances even now. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because I can." I walked to the window seat, running my hand along the faded cushion. "Because the daughter you threw away for being a stripper is now successful enough to buy your house. Ironic, isn't it?" "If this is about revenge," Dad started, "it's about coming full circle." I cut him off. "You made your choice 6 years ago. Now, I'm making mine." Andre stepped forward. "Vi, please." "The papers are ready," Mark interrupted, clearly wanting to move things along. "Shall we proceed?" Mom looked at Dad, tears in her eyes. He stared at the floor, his jaw clenched. Finally, he nodded. "We'll sign," he said quietly. As Mark guided them through the paperwork, I stood by the bookshelf, examining the leather-bound law books my father had once hoped I'd study. Behind me, I heard the scratch of pens on paper, my mother's muffled sniffles, the rustle of pages being turned. "It's done," Mark announced finally. "We'll schedule the closing for 30 days from today." I turned back to my family, my broken, proud family. "I'll have my lawyers contact you about the transition details." As I walked out of the library, Andre caught up with me in the hallway. "Was it worth it?" he asked softly. I looked back at our parents, still sitting shell-shocked among the signed papers. "Ask me in 30 days. The front door closed behind me with a familiar click. But this time, I was the one choosing to walk away. 30 days passed in a blur of legal paperwork and silent tension. Now I stood in the closing attorney's office, watching my parents shuffle in, looking like they'd aged another decade since our last meeting. "The funds have been verified," the attorney announced, spreading documents across his mahogany desk. "We just need final signatures from all parties." Mom wouldn't look at me. Dad stared straight ahead, his jaw set in that familiar stubborn line. Andre had chosen not to attend. He'd texted me earlier. "I can't watch this." "Before we sign," I said, making everyone pause, "I have something to say." Mom finally lifted her eyes to meet mine. The defeat in them almost made me falter. Almost. "6 years ago, you gave me an ultimatum in this city. Strip or stay. Dance or daughter, not both." I pulled a folder from my briefcase. "I'd like to show you what that choice led to." I laid out magazine covers featuring my books, newspaper articles about my success, photos of my speaking engagements at universities. While you were busy being ashamed of me, I was busy building something. "Violet," Dad's voice carried a warning tone I remembered from childhood. "This isn't necessary." "Oh, but it is." I pulled out one final piece of paper, my first paycheck stub from the Pearl. "This paid for my textbooks after you cut me off, $342. I framed the original. Mom made a small choking sound. "Every dollar I earned on that stage went toward my future. Every judgment, every whisper, every condemning look, I turned them all into fuel." I met their eyes in turn. And now here we are. Poetic, isn't it? The attorney cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Shall we proceed with the signatures?" "In a moment," I said, pulling out one more document. "This is my offer to let you stay in the house." Dad's head snapped up. Mom gasped. "What?" she whispered. "A rental agreement, market rate, month-to-month lease." I slid it across the desk. "Your choice." Dad's hands trembled as he picked up the paper. "Why would you—" "Because I'm not you," I said simply. "I don't believe in destroying people to prove a point." Mom started crying quietly. Dad put down the rental agreement and finally, really looked at me. "We were wrong," he said, his voice rough. "About everything." "Yes, you were." I kept my voice steady. "But this isn't about revenge. It's about showing you who I really am, who I've always been if you'd bothered to look." "The stripper who became a best-selling author," Mom said softly, surprising me. I've read your books. All of them." I hadn't expected that. "You have?" She nodded, wiping her eyes. "The character in your second book, the mother who couldn't see past her own expectations. That was me, wasn't it?" "It was every parent who values appearance over authenticity." I swallowed hard. "Every mother who confuses control with love." The attorney shuffled papers nervously. The rental agreement would need to be handled separately from the sale. "Then let's finish the sale first," I said, picking up a pen. "Mom? Dad? Your signatures will transfer ownership to me. The rental agreement is there if you want it. Your choice. For once, I'm giving you the ultimatum." Dad looked at Mom, then back at me. "We don't deserve your mercy." "No," I agreed. "But maybe that's exactly why I'm offering it." The next few minutes passed in a blur of signatures and initials. With each stroke of the pen, years of pain and pride transferred hands, sealed in legal language and notary stamps. "Congratulations," the attorney said when we finished. The property is now officially owned by Rising Phoenix Publishing. I stood, gathering my things. The rental agreement is good for 48 hours. Let me know your decision. As I turned to leave, Mom called out, "Violet?" I paused at the door. "That night, when you left?" Her voice cracked. "I wanted to run after you. Why didn't you?" "Pride." She looked down at her hands. "Always pride." "Pride is expensive," I said quietly. "I learned that at the Pearl. Every night I danced, I left my pride in the dressing room, but I kept my dignity. There's a difference." Dad stood up. "We'd like to sign the rental agreement, if the offer still stands." I nodded to the attorney. "Draw up the papers." As I walked out of the office, my phone buzzed. A text from Andre. "How did it go?" I typed back, "They're staying, as my tenants." His response came quickly. "You're a better person than they deserved." "No," I replied. "I'm exactly the person they failed to see." I got into my car and looked at myself in the rearview mirror. The scared girl who'd walked out of that house 6 years ago was gone. In her place sat a woman who'd learned that the best revenge isn't serving cold justice. It's serving grace when they expect wrath. The house was mine now, but more importantly, so was my story. A week after the closing, I sat across from my parents at their favorite restaurant. Now my treat. The silence between us felt heavy with unspoken words and years of distance. "The firm's liquidation is final," Dad said, breaking the tension. 28 years of building it, gone in months. "What happened?" I asked, genuinely curious. He sighed, looking older than his years. "Bad investments. Trust in the wrong people. Pride preventing me from seeing the warning signs until it was too late." "Sounds familiar," I said quietly. Mom flinched. She hadn't touched her wine. "We've been doing a lot of thinking, Violet, about everything." "That makes 2 of us." I took a sip of my water. "Andre tells me you've read my books. The scene in your 3rd book," Dad leaned forward, "where the father throws away his daughter's dance shoes. That was about me, wasn't it? Everything I write is about us in some way." I met his gaze. "Writers turn their pain into prose. It's how we survive." A waiter arrived with our food, providing a brief respite from the intensity of the conversation. "Tell us," Mom said after he left, "about those years. The real story." I put down my fork. "Are you sure you want to hear it?" They both nodded. "After you kicked me out, I lived with Gianna, worked double shifts at the Pearl, took morning classes, wrote until dawn." I smiled slightly. "The other dancers helped me study. Did you know that? They quizzed me on literature between sets." Mom's hand trembled as she reached for her wine glass. "I graduated summa cum laude, got published in literary magazines. An agent found me. Then Caden, my publisher, took a chance on my first book." I paused. "The advance was enough to quit dancing, but I kept my first pair of platform heels as a reminder." "A reminder of what?" Dad asked. "That sometimes the path to dignity runs through places others consider shameful." The silence that followed felt different, less hostile, more contemplative. "Your brother," Mom started, then stopped. "What about him?" "He defended you. That night, after you left, said we were making a terrible mistake." She dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. "He was right. Andre's always been smarter than people give him credit for." I smiled sadly. "He used to sneak into my shows, you know. Not to watch, to make sure I was safe. Left before I ever saw him." Dad put down his fork hard. "He knew where you were? All that time?" "He was being a better father than you were," I said sharply, then softer. "He was protecting his little sister." "Like we should have done," Mom whispered. A couple walked past our table and Mom instinctively straightened, putting on her social mask. "Some habits die hard." "You don't have to pretend anymore," I said. "The neighbours all know about the bankruptcy, about selling the house, about everything." "Old habits," she murmured. "Speaking of the house," Dad cleared his throat, "the rental agreement is just business," I finished for him. "I'm your landlord, not your saviour." "We know." He looked down at his plate. "But it's more than we deserve." "Maybe." I leaned back. Or maybe it's exactly what we all deserve, a chance to rewrite our story. How can you be so forgiving? Mom asked. I'm not. I met her eyes. I'm being strategic. Success isn't about destroying those who hurt you. It's about building something so magnificent that their rejection becomes irrelevant. The waiter returned with the check. I reached for it before Dad could try. Let me, he protested weakly. You can't afford it, I said, not unkindly. Besides, this is what successful authors do. They treat their parents to dinner. As we walked to our cars, Mum suddenly stopped. Would you sign my copies of your books? I brought them. They're in the car. I watched her retrieve a canvas bag full of hardcovers. All my books, their spines cracked from reading. You really did read them, I said, surprised. Over and over. She handed me a pen. They were the only way I could hear your voice. I opened the first book, thinking carefully before writing. To Mom. Sometimes the hardest stories to read are the ones we're part of. Love. Violet. She read it, tears spilling onto the page. Dad looked over her shoulder, his arm around her for the first time in years. The house, he said suddenly, will be out by the end of the month. What? I looked up from signing the last book. But the rental agreement is generous, Mom finished. But we need to find our own way now, like you did. I handed back the books, understanding. They needed to rebuild, just as I had. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go. Okay, I said simply. But dinner, same time next week? They both nodded, and for the first time in 6 years, their smiles reached their eyes. Moving day arrived with a crisp autumn breeze. I stood in the driveway, watching my parents load the last of their belongings into a rented moving truck. They'd found a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but it was a start. Need any help? I asked, approaching the truck. Dad wiped his forehead. I think we've got it, though I never realized how much stuff we'd accumulated over 30 years. The furniture stays, right? I gestured toward the house. As we agreed? Yes, Mom emerged from the garage carrying a box labelled Photos. Though I'd like to show you something before we leave. She led me up to my old bedroom, now empty except for the built-in window seat. Kneeling down, she pressed a hidden latch and a small compartment popped open. I kept these, she said, pulling out a stack of papers. Every article you published, every review, even the ones under your pen name, before you started using your real name. I took the yellowed clippings with trembling hands. You followed my career. Even then. Of course I did. She touched my arm hesitantly. I was wrong, Violet. So terribly wrong, but I never stopped being your mother. A car door slammed outside and Andre's voice carried up. Mom? Dad? The truck's ready. We headed downstairs to find Andre and Dad securing the last few boxes. This is it then, Dad said, looking around the foyer one last time. His eyes lingered on the chandelier, now sparkling again after I'd had it cleaned. It's just a house, I said softly. No, Mom shook her head. It was our prison. We were so caught up in appearances, in what the neighbours would think, in maintaining this facade. We lost sight of what really mattered. Andre stepped forward. Speaking of what matters, I have news. We all turned to him. I'm leaving the law, he announced, opening a community arts centre downtown, using my savings and some investors I found. Dad's mouth fell open. But your career was your dream, Dad, not mine. Andre smiled. Violet taught me that sometimes you have to disappoint your parents to become who you're meant to be. I couldn't help but laugh. An arts centre? Really? Really? He grinned. And I want you to be our first guest speaker. Show those kids that their dreams matter no matter what anyone says. Mum started crying again, but this time they were different tears. We really messed up with both of you, didn't we? You did your best, Andre said, hugging her, with what you knew then. But now we all know better. Dad cleared his throat. The truck's waiting. We should... Wait, I said suddenly. I have something for you. I ran to my car and returned with a manuscript. My new book. It's not published yet, but I want you to read it first. Mom took it carefully. What's it about? Forgiveness, I said, and how sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. Dad read the title aloud. Dancing with Ghosts, a story of family, forgiveness, and finding your way home. It's your story too, I said. All of ours. The moments stretched between us heavy with understanding. Then Andre's phone buzzed, breaking the spell. The rental office closes in an hour, he reminded them. We need to get your keys. One by one, they hugged me. Mom held on the longest. We'll see you for dinner next week? She asked. Same time, same place, I promised. I watched them drive away. Dad at the wheel of the moving truck, Mom in the passenger seat, Andre following in his car. When they turned the corner, I walked back into the house. My house. The emptiness felt different now, not hollow but full of possibility. I walked through each room, touching walls that held 3 decades of memories, both painful and precious. In the library, I found a note propped against Dad's prized law books. These belong to you now, not because I want you to be a lawyer, but because you've proven you can win any case life brings you. Love, Dad. In my old bedroom, another note tucked into the window seat. I saved your first story, the one about the girl who could fly. I should have known then that no cage could hold you. Love, Mom. And in the kitchen, one from Andre. Remember when you taught me to make pancakes at midnight? Let's do that again sometime. This time I'm buying the syrup. Love, your proud big brother. I sat on the stairs holding all 3 notes and felt the last pieces of anger melt away. The house that had once witnessed my shame now stood as testament to something else. The power of owning your story, all of it, the glitter and the grit, the darkness and the dawn. My phone buzzed. A text from Gianna. You okay? I looked around at my new home, at the space that would hold my next chapter, and typed back, better than okay. I'm free. The grand opening of Andre's art centre buzzed with energy. Local news cameras rolled as I stepped up to the podium, facing a room full of young dreamers and their parents. When I was 16, I began. I wrote my first story in a window seat, hiding from parents who thought art was a waste of time. Today, I own that window seat, and that house, and my story. In the front row, Mom and Dad sat holding hands. They looked different now, softer, more real. Dad had traded his suits for casual wear, and Mom had finally let her hair go naturally grey. Society loves to tell us who we should be, I continued. Parents, teachers, neighbours, everyone has an opinion about your path. But here's the truth. The only path that matters is the one you carve for yourself. I pulled out my old platform heels from behind the podium. Gasps and whispers rippled through the audience. These paid for my degree. Every dance, every dollar, every judgment I endured, they all led me here. To this moment, to this truth, there is no shame in surviving. There is only pride in thriving. Andre stood at the back, beaming. His art centre had transformed an abandoned warehouse into a haven of creativity. Dance studios, writing workshops, painting classes, a place where dreams didn't need permission to exist. My brother and I learned the hard way that disappointing your parents might be the price of becoming yourself. I smiled at Andre. But sometimes, if you're lucky, they learn to see you. Really see you. After the speech, during the reception, a teenage girl approached me, clutching my latest book. My parents hate that I dance, she whispered. They say it's inappropriate. I knelt down to her level. What do you say? That when I dance, I feel like I'm flying. Then fly, I said, signing her book. The ground will always be there to catch you. Her mother appeared, looking uncomfortable. I stood to face her. She has real talent, I said before she could speak, and a stronger spirit than you know. The woman glanced at my book, then at her daughter. Perhaps we could talk about proper training. Andre materialized beside me. We have an excellent dance program here. Scholarships available. As they walked away to discuss details, Mom touched my arm. "That was you," she said softly. "At her age, we just couldn't see it then." "But you see it now," I replied. "In her. In others." Dad joined us carrying coffee. The contractor called. "Your renovations are finished." I nodded. I'd transformed my childhood home into a writer's retreat, keeping one room as a permanent office for myself. The window seat remained untouched, a reminder of where stories begin. "Speaking of renovations," Andre called out, waving us over to a wall, "I have something to show you." He pulled down a cloth covering, revealing a mural. It showed a young girl writing at a window seat, while behind her a dancer twirled in shadows. Both figures had my face. "The duality of Violet," he said proudly. "Writer and dancer, daughter and rebel. Living proof that we contain multitudes." Mum started to cry, but Dad surprised us all by laughing. "All those years trying to make you two fit into neat little boxes." He shook his head. "Look what happened when we let you out." Gianna arrived, fashionably late as usual. "Sorry I missed the speech, but I brought champagne." We gathered in Andre's office, popping the cork and filling plastic cups. The sunset painted the room gold through the industrial windows. "A toast," Andre raised his cup, "to second chances." "To found family," Gianna added, squeezing my hand. "To forgiveness," Mom said quietly. "To truth," Dad offered. I lifted my cup last. "To owning your story, every chapter, every verse, every dance." As conversations flowed around me, I watched the teenage dancer from earlier practicing in one of the studios. Her mother sat watching, uncertainty warring with pride on her face. I touched the necklace I wore, a small silver key on a chain. It opened both the art center and my house, linking my past and future in tangible ways. Andre sidled up beside me. "Happy?" "Content," I corrected. "It's better than happy." "The mural?" He hesitated. "Was it too much?" "It's perfect." I hugged him. "Thank you for seeing both sides of me even when I couldn't." Through the window, I could see the city lights beginning to twinkle. Somewhere out there, a girl was probably dancing for dollars, funding her own dreams. Another was probably writing in secret, finding her voice. I touched the window glass, speaking softly to those unknown dreamers. "Keep going. Your story matters." Behind me, my family, both blood and chosen, continued celebrating. Their voices blended into a melody of reconciliation and hope, proving that sometimes the happiest endings aren't endings at all. They're just better beginnings.
The call came at 3 a.m., exactly 1 year after Mark stole everything from me. I was still awake, nursing a glass of wine and staring at old family photos, a habit I'd developed since losing both the business and my parents in the same cruel year. My name is Viviana, and until last year, I was the co-heir to Swanson Technologies, a company my parents built from nothing. Now I'm just another unemployed tech executive with a vendetta. "Your brother's making mistakes," the voice on the phone said. "Big ones. Thought you might want to know." I sat up straighter, wine forgotten. "Who is this?" "Someone who thinks you got a raw deal. Check your email." "And Viviana, Meridian Tech is hiring." The line went dead before I could respond. My hands trembled as I opened my laptop, finding a single new email containing internal documents from my family's company. Now Mark's company. The financials were worse than I'd imagined. "Bastards running it into the ground," I whispered, scrolling through the numbers. My phone buzzed, a text from my Aunt Rachel. "Can't sleep either? Come over." 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Rachel's kitchen, the familiar scent of her chamomile tea filling the air. She'd been more of a mother to me since my parents died, especially after Mark's betrayal. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Rachel said, sliding a steaming mug toward me. "I just got some interesting information about Mark's company." I pulled out my phone, showing her the documents. "He's making exactly the mistakes Dad always warned us about." Rachel's eyes narrowed as she studied the screen. "And what do you plan to do with this information?" "I don't know yet." I did know, but I wasn't ready to say it out loud. Remember last month when I tried to confront him at the office? How could I forget? Security escorted you out while he watched from his window. The memory made my blood boil. He didn't even have the decency to face me, just stood there, drinking Dad's favorite whiskey from Dad's crystal glass in Dad's office. Your office, Rachel corrected. It should have been yours too. He had it all planned, I said, the words bitter in my mouth. While Mom and Dad were in the hospital after the accident, he was already meeting with lawyers, changing documents, moving assets. By the time they passed, I couldn't finish the sentence. Rachel reached across the table, squeezing my hand. What are you thinking, Vivi? Meridian Tech is hiring. Mark's biggest competitor? Rachel's eyebrows shot up. Now that would be interesting. My phone buzzed again. Elena, my best friend since college, requesting a video call. I answered, and her concerned face filled the screen. Vi, I just saw the news. Mark's announcing his engagement tomorrow. What? The mug slipped from my hand, spilling tea across Rachel's pristine tablecloth. To who? Gabriella Joseph. That investor's daughter he's been seeing. There's going to be a press conference in the morning. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course. He takes the company, and now he's going to play happy families in front of the cameras. The prodigal son carrying on our parents' legacy. Don't let him win, Elena said firmly. Not like this. Rachel was already cleaning up the spilled tea, but her eyes were fixed on me. She's right. You're stronger than him, Viviana. Always have been. I stood up, my decision made. I need to go home and update my resume. Meridian Tech's going to want to see it first thing in the morning. What are you planning? Elena asked through the phone. I looked at the family photo on Rachel's wall. Mom, Dad, Mark, and me at the company's 20th anniversary celebration. We were all smiling then, before the accident, before the betrayal. I'm planning to take back what's mine, I said. But first, I'm going to learn exactly how he did it. Rachel nodded slowly. Your father always said the best revenge is success. This isn't about revenge, I lied, gathering my things. It's about justice. As I drove home through the empty streets, my anonymous caller's words echoed in my mind. Mark was making mistakes, big ones, and soon, very soon, I would make him pay for every single one of them. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Interview tomorrow, 9 a.m. Maurice Brown's office. Don't be late. I smiled for the first time in what felt like years. Game on, big brother. Game on. Maurice Brown's office was everything my father's hadn't been. Sleek, modern, and intimidating. The man himself sat behind a glass desk, studying my resume with an intensity that made me nervous. Your credentials are impressive, he said finally, looking up. But let's address the elephant in the room. You're Mark's sister. I replied, keeping my voice steady. Now I'm just someone who knows every aspect of how Swanson Technologies operates. A slight smile crossed his face. And why should I believe you'd be loyal to Meridian? Because my brother made sure I have nothing left to lose. I leaned forward. He betrayed me, Mr. Brown. But more importantly, he's destroying everything my parents built. I want to help Meridian become what Swanson Technologies should have been. Maurice stood up, walking to his window. Call me Maurice, and tell me, what would you do differently? For the next hour, I outlined everything I'd seen in those leaked documents, explaining exactly how Mark's decisions were weakening the company. Maurice listened intently, occasionally interrupting with sharp questions that proved he understood exactly what I was talking about. You start Monday, he said finally. Junior executive position. Prove yourself, and we'll talk about more. 3 months later, I was staying late at the office when I overheard voices from the conference room. Swanson Technologies lost another major contract, someone said. Third one this quarter. I pressed myself against the wall, listening. Mark's getting desperate, another voice added. Word is, he's trying to arrange a merger with Pacific Solutions to stay afloat. My heart raced. Pacific Solutions was notorious for gutting companies and selling them for parts. I pulled out my phone and texted Elena. Need you to dig into Pacific Solutions. Anything you can find. Elena, a financial journalist, replied instantly. Already on it. Having drinks with Donald tomorrow. Mark's best man. He loves to talk when he's drunk. I smiled. Elena had always been brilliant at getting information out of people. The next morning, Maurice called me into his office. Your proposal for the Anderson account was exceptional. The board wants you to lead the presentation next week. Thank you, but you heard about Pacific Solutions. He finished, studying my face. News travels fast in this industry. I nodded. If Mark merges with them, everything my parents built will be destroyed. Then stop it. Maurice's voice was calm but firm. Show me what you can really do, Viviana. That evening, I met Rachel for dinner at our usual spot. The restaurant was quiet, perfect for sensitive conversations. Pacific Solutions. Rachel's fork clattered against her plate. He wouldn't dare. He would, I said, pushing my food around. He's desperate. The company's hemorrhaging money. Your father would be heartbroken. Rachel reached for her wine. When are you going to make your move? Soon, but I need more allies, more resources. My phone buzzed. Elena, you won't believe what Donald just told me. Call me ASAP. Excuse me, I said to Rachel, stepping outside to call Elena. Pacific Solutions isn't Mark's only option, Elena said, without preamble. Donald let slip that there's a board meeting next week. They're considering other buyers. Who? He wouldn't say, but he mentioned the Anderson contract. Apparently, Mark's counting on it to keep the company attractive to buyers. The same contract I was presenting to next week. The pieces started falling into place. Back inside, Rachel took one look at my face and knew. You've found something. Maybe. I took a deep breath. But I need to move carefully. One wrong step, and Mark will see me coming. He's too arrogant for that, Rachel said. He still thinks you're broken. Use that. Later that night, working late at Meridian, I noticed Maurice watching me from his office. He walked over, coffee in hand. The Anderson presentation isn't just about landing a client, is it? He asked. I met his gaze. No, it's not. Good. He set the coffee on my desk. Because I didn't hire you just for your expertise. I hired you because I recognize that look in your eyes. The look that says you're willing to do whatever it takes to win. Is that enough? It's a start. He turned to leave, then paused. Your brother's hosting a charity gala next weekend. Meridian just received an invitation. I think it's time we introduced his sister, the rising star of Meridian Tech, to our business partners, don't you? I smiled, already imagining Mark's face when he saw me there. I believe it is. The charity gala was being held at the same hotel where we'd celebrated my parents' last anniversary. Mark had chosen it deliberately, I was sure. He always did have a talent for twisting the knife. Ready? Elena adjusted my emerald dress in the hotel lobby. You look like $1 million. Make that 10 million, Maurice said, appearing beside us in an impeccable tuxedo. The investors will love you. I touched the diamond pendant at my neck, Mom's favorite, rescued from the house before Mark could claim it. Let's go make some new friends. The ballroom was packed with the city's business elite. I spotted Mark immediately, holding court near the stage, with his new fiancée, Gabriella, on his arm. He hadn't seen me yet. Viviana, Donald's voice boomed across the room. Mark's head snapped up, his champagne glass freezing halfway to his lips. Our eyes met, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of fear before his practiced smile returned. Donald, I greeted Mark's best man warmly. How lovely to see you again. You know each other? Mark appeared at Donald's side, Gabriella in tow. We've met, I said sweetly. Donald's been very informative about the business lately. Donald, already tipsy, didn't catch the tension. Viviana's doing amazing things at Meridian. Did you know she landed the Anderson account? Mark's smile tightened. Did she? Actually, Maurice interrupted smoothly. Viviana's been instrumental in several of our recent successes. We're lucky to have her. How wonderful, Gabriella said genuinely, seemingly oblivious to the undercurrent. Mark, you never mentioned your sister was so accomplished. There's a lot Mark doesn't mention, I said, locking eyes with my brother. Isn't there? Before he could respond, Elena appeared with an elderly gentleman in tow. Viviana, Mr. Patterson wants to discuss your proposals for technological integration in the healthcare sector. Excuse me, I said to Mark. Business calls. As I walked away, I heard Gabriella ask, "Darling, why didn't you tell me Viviana was working for Meridian?" The next hour was a blur of handshakes and strategic conversations. I worked the room exactly as Dad had taught us, making connections, dropping hints about Meridian's upcoming projects, watching potential investors' eyes light up with interest. "You're a natural," Maurice murmured, appearing at my elbow with fresh champagne. "3 investors have already asked about private meetings. Make that 4, Rachel said, joining us. I just overheard the Thompson Group discussing how they might need to reconsider their existing partnerships. Their existing partnership with Mark, you mean? I took a sip of champagne, scanning the room. Where is he? Having an intense discussion with the board members by the bar, Elena reported, materializing with her journalist's notebook discreetly palmed. They don't look happy. I watched Mark gesture frantically, his usual composure cracking. One of the board members shook his head and walked away. Trouble in paradise? Maurice asked innocently. The Anderson contract was supposed to save him, I said. Without it, Viviana. Mark's voice was tight with controlled anger. He'd approached without me noticing. A word, I followed him to a quiet corner, aware of Elena and Rachel watching protectively. What are you playing at? He hissed. Playing? I'm working, Mark. Something you might want to try, instead of selling off pieces of Mom and Dad's legacy. His face reddened. You have no idea what it takes to run this company. No, you made sure of that when you changed their will while they were dying. I kept my voice low but sharp. How's that working out for you? I heard Pacific Solutions is interested in buying. Mark grabbed my arm. Stay out of this, Vivi. You're in over your head. Let go of my sister. Rachel's voice cut through the tension. She stood there, every inch the family matriarch, with Maurice and Elena flanking her. Mark released me, straightening his jacket. Family matters should stay in the family. You lost the right to talk about family, Rachel said coldly, the day you betrayed yours. As Mark stormed off, Elena touched my arm. You okay? Better than okay, I said, watching him return to his increasingly worried-looking board members. Donald just texted me. The board's calling an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Maurice smiled. Perfect timing. Shall we announce Meridian's new healthcare initiative? The one that just happened to be Mark's biggest potential growth sector. I nodded, straightening my mother's pendant. Time to twist the knife. Rachel squeezed my hand. Your parents would be proud. Not of the revenge, maybe, but of how brilliantly you fight. This isn't just about revenge anymore, I said, watching Gabriella console a visibly agitated Mark across the room. It's about justice, and it's just beginning. The morning after the gala, Elena burst into my office at Meridian without knocking. You're not going to believe this. I looked up from my laptop. The board meeting. Better. She tossed a USB drive onto my desk. Donald got drunk at brunch and left his laptop unlocked. Mark's been cooking the books for months. Maurice walked in just as I plugged in the drive. Close the door, I said. The files painted a damning picture. Mark had been inflating profits, hiding losses, and moving money between accounts to keep the company looking stable. This is exactly what we need, Maurice said, studying the screen. But we have to move carefully. One wrong step, and he could destroy evidence. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Mark just called. He's moving up the wedding. 2 weeks from now. He's panicking, Elena said, reading over my shoulder, trying to look stable for the investors. Or trying to get married before everything falls apart, I added. Either way, we need to move faster. Maurice nodded. I'll call an executive meeting. It's time to discuss a hostile takeover. Wait. I held up my hand. I have a better idea. Donald mentioned something at the gala about Mark's private server. Elena's eyes lit up. The one with all the original company documents? Including, I said slowly, the real version of our parents' will. The next day, I met Donald for coffee. He was already seated when I arrived, nervously checking his phone. "Thanks for meeting me," I said, sliding into the chair across from him. "Mark's going crazy, trying to find out who accessed his private files." Donald wiped his brow. "He doesn't suspect me yet, but you're worried he will," I finished. "Help me, Donald. Help me prove what he did." "Why should I?" "Because you were there." I leaned forward. "You were at the hospital that day. You saw him with those lawyers while our parents were dying." Donald's hands shook as he lifted his coffee. "He's my best friend." "Is he? Or is he just the guy who's been using you to cover up his crimes?" 3 hours later, I walked into Maurice's office with a signed statement from Donald and access codes to Mark's private server. "You've been busy," Maurice said, impressed. I learned from the best. I sat down, pulling out my tablet. Now, about that takeover. The next week was a whirlwind of secret meetings and careful planning. Elena kept feeding false stories to other journalists, directing attention away from our real moves. Rachel worked her social connections, quietly swaying key investors. Then came the text I'd been waiting for. "Wedding rehearsal dinner tonight. Mark insisted I invite you. Says it's time to heal the family." "Gabriella, it's a trap," Elena said when I showed her. "Of course it is," I smiled. "That's what makes it perfect." The restaurant was exclusive, the kind of place Mark loved to flaunt his wealth. I arrived fashionably late, making sure everyone noticed my entrance. "Viviana," Gabriella rushed to hug me. "I'm so glad you came." Mark approached more slowly, champagne in hand. "Sister, decided to accept the olive branch. How could I miss my only brother's wedding?" I raised my glass. "To new beginnings." Donald caught my eye from across the room, giving a subtle nod. The server was ours. "Speech," someone called out. "Let's hear from the best man." Donald stood, swaying slightly. "I've known Mark for years. Been through everything with him, including," he paused, glancing at me, "some things I'm not proud of." Mark's face darkened. "Donald. But tonight's about family," Donald continued. "About truth. About doing what's right." My phone vibrated. A message from Maurice. "Documents secured. Board members notified. Green light." I stood up, cutting off Donald's speech. "Actually, I'd like to say something." The room fell silent. Mark's knuckles went white around his glass. "Tomorrow morning," I said clearly, "the board of Swanson Technologies will receive proof of extensive financial fraud. They'll also receive the original version of our parents' will, the one Mark replaced while they were dying." Gasps filled the room. Gabriella's hand flew to her mouth. "You have no proof," Mark snarled. "Check your private server," I suggested. "Oh wait, you can't. The authorities already have." The sound of breaking glass echoed as Mark's champagne flute shattered in his grip. "You're bluffing," he whispered. I pulled out my phone, showing him the screen. His face went pale. "The real question," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "is whether your lovely bride wants to be married to a man who's about to be charged with fraud and theft." As chaos erupted around us, I caught Rachel's proud smile from across the room. The game wasn't over, but I'd just made my winning move. The morning after the rehearsal dinner bombshell, I sat in Maurice's office, watching the chaos unfold on multiple news channels. Mark's fraud was front-page news, and Gabriella's family had publicly withdrawn their investment. "Your brother's outside," Maurice's assistant announced through the intercom. "Send him in." I straightened in my chair as Mark burst through the door, looking like he hadn't slept. "Fix this," he demanded. "Fix what?" I kept my voice calm. "The fraud you committed, the will you forged, or the mess you've made of our parents' company. You don't understand." He ran his hands through his disheveled hair. "I had to take control. You weren't ready. That wasn't your decision to make. I'll give you anything you want," he pleaded. "Name your price." The door opened again. Maurice walked in with Elena and 2 men in suits. Mr. Swanson, one of the men said, I'm from the Securities and Exchange Commission. We need you to come with us. As they led Mark away, Elena handed me a tablet. The board just voted. They're removing him as CEO, effective immediately. And? I asked, knowing there was more. And they're considering Meridian's offer for a merger. Maurice smiled. With you at the helm of both companies. My phone rang. Rachel. Turn on Channel 7, she said, without greeting. Gabriella's giving a press conference. I grabbed the remote, switching screens. Gabriella stood at a podium, her engagement ring noticeably absent. While I care deeply for Mark, she was saying, I cannot and will not be associated with someone who would betray their own family and commit fraud. The wedding is off. That's gotta hurt, Elena muttered. Not as much as this will, I said, pulling up an email. Donald just sent over the footage from Dad's office the day they died. Security cameras caught everything. We watched in silence as the video played, Mark ushering lawyers in through the back door, signing documents while our parents lay unconscious in the hospital. Release it, Maurice advised. End this completely. Wait, I stared at the screen. There's something else we can do. That afternoon, I walked into the boardroom of Swanson Technologies for the first time since Mark had taken over. The board members sat around the massive table, looking shell-shocked. Gentlemen, I began, you have two options. A messy public merger with Meridian that will drag this company's reputation through more mud, or a clean private transition of power back to its rightful heir. You have proof, the chairman asked, of the original will. I placed a folder on the table. I have everything. But I'm willing to keep the worst of it quiet if you do the right thing. And what's that? Restore the company to joint ownership between Mark and me, as our parents intended. But with one condition, I have sole executive control. The chairman leaned forward. And what happens to Mark? He keeps his shares, but steps down completely. No charges filed, no more public scandal. He gets to save face, and the company survives. Elena slipped into the room, handing me a note. I read it and smiled. Oh, and Mark agrees. He's signing the papers as we speak. The board members exchanged glances. All those in favor? The chairman asked. Hands raised unanimously. Later that evening, I sat in what had once been Dad's office and would soon be mine again. Rachel poured champagne into crystal glasses. Your parents would be proud, she said, handing me one. Though I'm surprised you let Mark keep his shares. Sometimes mercy is the better revenge, I replied. Besides, watching me run his company will be punishment enough. My phone buzzed. A text from Maurice. Merger announcement tomorrow. Ready to shock the business world? Elena walked in, carrying a stack of papers. The press is going crazy. Everyone wants to know how you did it. Let them wonder. I stood up, walking to the window. The city lights sparkled below, just as they had the night I'd gotten that mysterious phone call. We have work to do. Speaking of work, Elena said carefully, Donald's asking about that job you promised him. Head of security, I confirmed. He earned it. His evidence made this possible. Rachel raised her glass. To justice. To family, Elena added. I touched the diamond pendant at my neck, thinking of Mom and Dad. To legacy. As we drank, I noticed a small package on the desk, wrapped in familiar paper. The card read, You won. But remember, power comes with responsibility. Mark. Inside was Dad's old fountain pen, the one he'd used to sign every major contract. Well, I said, picking up the pen, shall we start fixing what he broke? The real work was just beginning. But for the first time in years, I felt truly ready. 6 months after taking control of the company, I found myself staring at an unexpected email. Mark wanted to meet. It's a bad idea, Elena said when I told her. We were having lunch in my office, surrounded by stacks of merger paperwork. Probably, I agreed. But he's still my brother. He's still the man who betrayed you, she reminded me. My phone lit up with a text from Maurice. Board meeting in 10. Bring the quarterly reports. We'll finish this later, I told Elena, gathering my files. The boardroom was packed. Our merger with Meridian had exceeded all expectations, and today we were announcing another record quarter. The prodigal daughter delivers again, the chairman beamed as I presented the numbers. After the meeting, Rachel was waiting in my office. You're meeting him, aren't you? How did you? I'm having dinner with his ex-fiancée tonight, she explained. Gabriella mentioned he's been trying to make amends. I sank into my chair. What do you think he wants? Only one way to find out. The restaurant Mark chose was quiet, upscale, and neutral territory. He was already there when I arrived, looking thinner than I remembered. You look good, he said as I sat down. Success suits you. What do you want, Mark? He pulled out an envelope. To give you this. Inside was a letter, handwritten. I recognized Dad's writing immediately. Where did you get this? Found it in his desk drawer last week. It's dated 3 days before the accident. Mark's voice cracked slightly. Read it. The letter was addressed to both of us. My dearest children, if you're reading this, something has happened to your mother and me. The company is yours, both of yours. Together, you're stronger than either of you alone. Don't let pride or ambition destroy what we've built. Love, Dad. Why are you showing me this now? I asked, my hands shaking. Because I was wrong. Mark looked down at his untouched wine. I thought I was protecting our legacy, but I was just afraid. Afraid you'd be better at this than me. I am better at this than you. He actually smiled. Yes, you are. That's why I'm not contesting anything. You've earned this. Mark, let me finish. He held up his hand. I'm leaving the country. Starting fresh in London. But before I go, I needed you to know I'm sorry. For everything. My phone buzzed. A message from Donald. Emergency at the office. Server breach. Need you here now. I have to go. I stood up. There's a situation. Of course, Mark nodded. You're the boss now. At the office, I found Donald and our IT team huddled around monitors. Someone's trying to access the old private server, Donald explained. The one with the original documents, I finished. Can you trace it? Already did. He looked uncomfortable. It's coming from Pacific Solutions. My blood ran cold. I turned to Mark's old office, now mine, and froze. Through the glass walls, I could see someone at my computer. Call security, I whispered to Donald. But before he could move, Elena appeared beside us. Don't bother, look. On every screen in the office, documents were appearing. Proof that Pacific Solutions had been planning to strip our company for parts long before Mark's downfall. They were never going to save the company, I realized. They were going to destroy it. Check the trace again, Elena urged Donald. He typed rapidly. It's coming from Mark's laptop, in London. My phone buzzed with a text. Consider it my parting gift. Take care of our legacy. M. Rachel called moments later. Gabriella just told me something interesting. Pacific Solutions is scrambling. Someone leaked their entire acquisition strategy to the press. I looked at Dad's letter, still in my hand. Mark did one thing right, finally. What now? Donald asked. Now, I said. We do what Dad wanted. We build something stronger. Elena grinned. Together. Together. Later that night, alone in the office, I opened Dad's old desk drawer and found another surprise. A photo of Mark and me at our first company picnic. Barely teenagers, both grinning proudly in matching company t-shirts. My phone lit up with one final text from Mark. You were always the better choice. Make them proud. I placed the photo next to Dad's letter and our latest quarterly report. The past and present, side by side. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now I had peace. And sometimes that's better than revenge. 1 year to the day after taking control of the company, I stood in the lobby watching workers install the new sign. Swanson Meridian Technologies. The merged companies, stronger than ever, just as Dad had wanted. Quite a view, Maurice said, joining me. But we have a situation upstairs. In the conference room, Elena and Donald waited with grim faces. Pacific Solutions is making moves again, Elena announced. They're targeting Mark's London operations. What? I leaned forward. Why? Revenge, Donald said, pulling up emails on the screen. They're still bitter about the leaked documents. They want to destroy everything connected to the Swanson name. My phone rang. Rachel. Turn on the financial news, now. The television flickered to life, showing Mark at a press conference in London. He looked tired, but determined. Yes, Pacific Solutions is attempting a hostile takeover, he was saying. But they've underestimated the strength of family. The camera panned to show the London Stock Exchange ticker. Pacific Solutions stock was plummeting. What did you do? I whispered at the screen. My answer came in the form of an email from Mark. Remember Dad's old contingency plans? I implemented them all. Pacific Solutions just tried to buy a shell company. They'll be bankrupt by morning. He protected us, Elena said, amazed. He actually protected the company. Both companies, Maurice corrected. The London branch and ours are still legally connected. If Pacific Solutions had succeeded, they would have had a backdoor to everything we've built, I finished. Donald's computer chimed. Incoming video call from London. Mark's face appeared on the screen, the London skyline behind him. Hello, sister. I assume you've seen the news. Why didn't you tell me they were coming after you? Because you would have tried to help. He smiled sadly. I needed to do this myself, to prove I could protect our legacy instead of destroying it. The contingency plans, I said. You remembered them all this time? Dad drilled them into us every Sunday dinner for years. Always have a backup plan, he'd say. Always protect the family business. Rachel burst into the room. Pacific Solutions just announced emergency restructuring. Their CEO resigned. Perfect timing, Mark said. Check your email, Vivi. I opened his message to find documents transferring his remaining shares to me. Mark? No. Yes, he interrupted. The company belongs with you. I'm starting fresh, building something new, something Dad would be proud of. He'd be proud of you right now, I said softly. Perhaps. Mark looked away for a moment. I have to go. Board meeting to attend. My last one. After he disconnected, Maurice cleared his throat. The press will want a statement. Let them wait, Rachel said. Family comes first. I stared at the share transfer documents, remembering all the Sunday dinners, all Dad's lessons, all the years Mark and I had spent learning the business together. Donald, I said suddenly, can you pull up the original company charter? He typed quickly. Here it is. Why? Look at Article 3. I pointed to the screen. About subsidiary companies. Elena leaned in. Any independently operated branch can maintain autonomous leadership while remaining under the parent company's protection. The London office, Maurice realized. You're going to let him keep running it. As a subsidiary, I confirmed, already drafting the paperwork. He proved himself today. Maybe it's time I prove something too. What's that? Rachel asked. That forgiveness doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger. I called Mark back. When his face appeared, he looked surprised. The shares, I said. I'm not accepting them, but I am offering you a deal. By sunset, the papers were signed. Mark would retain control of the London operations as a subsidiary, while I maintained oversight of the global company. Pacific Solutions was finished, and our parents' legacy was secure. To new beginnings, Elena raised her glass in my office later that night. To family, Rachel added. To forgiveness, I said, touching Mom's pendant. My phone lit up with a final message from Mark. Sunday dinner next time I'm in town. I smiled, remembering Dad's voice. Always protect the family business. Yes, I typed back. We have a lot of catching up to do. Outside my office window, the new company sign glowed in the darkness, a beacon of everything we'd lost and found again. Sometimes the greatest victories aren't in revenge, but in redemption. Maurice appeared in my doorway, ready for tomorrow's challenges. More than ready, I said, standing up. We have a legacy to build. The autumn wind rustled through the cemetery as I placed fresh flowers on my parents' grave. The marble headstone gleamed in the morning light, recently cleaned and restored. "I thought I'd find you here," Mark's voice came from behind me. I turned to see my brother, looking more like himself than he had in years. "Your flight got in early. Couldn't sleep on the plane." He placed his own bouquet next to mine. "Too busy thinking about today." Today marked the official global merger celebration of Swanson Meridian Technologies, both branches, London and domestic, operating in perfect sync at last. "They'd be proud," I said, touching the headstone. "Of both of us." "Of you? Definitely." Mark straightened his tie. "I'm still working on earning it back." My phone buzzed. "Elena, everything's ready at the venue. Maurice is keeping the press entertained." "We should go," I said. "Rachel will kill us if we're late." At the convention center, the atmosphere crackled with excitement. Hundreds of employees, investors, and media representatives filled the main hall. "There you are," Rachel hurried over. "Donald's about to start the presentation." On the massive screen, images flashed, showing the company's journey, from our parents' first small office to the global enterprise it had become. "Ready for this?" Mark whispered as we waited backstage. "Are you?" He smiled, a real smile, like when we were kids. "Actually, yes." Donald's voice boomed through the speakers. "Please welcome our CEO, Viviana, and the head of our London operations, Mark." The applause was deafening as we walked out together. "A year ago," I began, "this company nearly fell apart. Today we're stronger than ever. Because we remembered what matters most," Mark added. "Family, legacy, trust." Maurice joined us on stage, carrying a familiar wooden box. Inside was Dad's old fountain pen, the one that had signed the original company documents. "Today," I announced, "we're not just celebrating a merger, we're celebrating a reunion." Mark opened a leather folder, revealing new partnership documents. "From this day forward, all major decisions will require both signatures, London and domestic, just as our parents intended." The pen felt heavy in my hand as I signed. When Mark took his turn, his hands were steady. "There's one more thing," I said into the microphone. "We're establishing the Swanson Foundation for Business Ethics, ensuring that what happened to our family never happens to another." Elena appeared with another document, the Foundation's charter. "The first board meeting is next week," she said. Gabriella agreed to serve as chairwoman. Mark's eyebrows shot up. "My ex-fiancée? Who better to oversee ethical business practices?" I grinned. "She's got experience spotting red flags." The laughter from the audience broke any remaining tension. Later, at the celebration dinner, Rachel raised her glass. "To second chances, and to lessons learned," Maurice added. Donald, slightly tipsy, chimed in. "To the best revenge story that ended up not being about revenge at all." I caught Mark's eye across the table. He nodded slightly, understanding passing between us. "Actually," I said, standing up, "I have one last surprise." I nodded to Elena, who dimmed the lights. On the restaurant's wall, a projector flickered to life, showing a video I'd discovered in Dad's old files. "To my children," Dad's voice filled the room. "If you're watching this, you've either succeeded brilliantly or failed spectacularly. Either way, remember, business is business, but family is everything." Mark's hand found mine in the darkness. "We got there eventually," he whispered. "Better late than never." The video ended with Mom and Dad smiling at the camera, young and hopeful, standing in front of their first office. As the lights came up, I saw tears in Rachel's eyes. "They'd be so happy right now." "They are," I said, touching my mother's pendant. "Somewhere." Morris raised his glass one final time. "To the future of Swanson Meridian Technologies." "No," Mark and I said simultaneously. We looked at each other, surprised, then laughed. "To family," we corrected together. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to prove ourselves worthy of our parents' legacy. But tonight, watching Mark chat easily with our old friends, seeing the pride in Rachel's eyes, feeling the weight of Mom's pendant against my heart. I knew we'd finally found our way home. Sometimes the best endings aren't about winning or losing. They're about finding what was lost and building something stronger from the pieces.
The first time my brother-in-law Bradley called me just a housewife, I smiled and brushed it off. The 100th time? I started plotting his downfall. I'm Edith, and until last month, I was the perfect example of what Bradley liked to call living the easy life. You know the type. Organizing school runs, managing household finances, coordinating family events, and keeping everyone's lives running smoothly while making it look effortless. Another lovely dinner, Edith. Bradley announced at our monthly family gathering, dabbing his mouth with a napkin. Must be nice having all day to perfect your cooking skills while some of us are out there in the real world. I caught my sister Rose's eye across the table. She gave me that look. The one that said, "I can't believe you're letting him get away with this again." Actually, I replied, maintaining my smile, I spent most of today helping the school board secure funding for a new STEM program. But yes, the pot roast did turn out well, didn't it? Bradley waved his hand dismissively. Oh, volunteer work. Cute. Try managing a multi-million-dollar company sometime. Now that's real stress. My husband Heidi shifted uncomfortably in his chair but said nothing. Typical. He never could stand up to his older brother. Speaking of stress, Bradley's wife Andrea chimed in. Bradley just closed another major deal. What was it, honey? 20 million? 22, Bradley corrected, puffing up like a peacock. But who's counting? He laughed at his own joke while I fought the urge to throw my wine in his face. Mom, can I be excused? My daughter whispered, clearly sensing the tension. I nodded, watching her escape to the safety of her room. You know, Edith, Bradley continued, swirling his expensive whiskey. You really should thank your lucky stars Heidi makes enough for you to stay home. In today's economy, most women don't have that luxury. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. Probably Sierra, my best friend who'd made it big in corporate consulting. The irony wasn't lost on me that while Bradley was patronizing me about the business world, I was ignoring calls from one of the most influential women in our city's financial district. I am grateful, I said, standing to clear the plates. Just like I'm sure you're grateful for all the connections I've helped you make at the charity galas I organize. You know, the ones where you meet half your clients. Bradley's smile faltered for just a second. Oh, those fancy parties? Please. Real business happens in boardrooms, not at your little social events. Rose stood up abruptly. I think I'll help Edith with the dishes. She followed me into the kitchen, closing the door behind us. I swear to God, Edith, if you don't put him in his place soon, I will, she hissed, grabbing a dish towel. Did you hear about what happened at his company last week? I raised an eyebrow. No, what? Word is, his partner Terrell's been making some questionable moves. They lost a major contract because of it. The information settled in my mind like a seed finding fertile soil. Really? Bradley hasn't mentioned anything. Of course not. Doesn't fit his master of the universe narrative, does it? Through the kitchen window, I could see Bradley holding court in our backyard, probably sharing another story about his business genius with Heidi and Andrea. The setting sun cast long shadows across his face, and for a moment, I imagined those shadows were bars of a cage, one he'd built himself with his arrogance. You know what Sierra always says, Rose continued, drying a wine glass with unnecessary vigor. The bigger they are, the harder they fall, I finished, a plan already forming in my mind. My phone buzzed again. This time I checked it. A text from Sierra. Need to talk ASAP. It's about Bradley's company. You won't believe what I just heard. I looked out at Bradley again, still gesturing grandly as he told his story. He caught my eye and gave me that condescending little nod he always did, the one that said, "Thanks for dinner, little housewife." I smiled back, but this time it wasn't my usual peaceful smile. This time it had teeth. Rose, I said, turning to my sister. I think it's time Bradley learned exactly what a housewife can do. She grinned, understanding immediately. Finally, what changed your mind? Let's just say I'm tired of being grateful. I picked up my phone to reply to Sierra. And I think the real world is about to get very interesting for our dear Bradley. Sierra's office always made me feel like I'd stepped into another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art, and that unmistakable air of power. A far cry from my kitchen where Bradley assumed I spent all my time. "You're not going to believe this," Sierra said, gesturing for me to sit. "Bradley's company is in serious trouble." I settled into the leather chair across from her desk. "Rose mentioned something about a lost contract?" "Oh, honey, it's way worse than that." Sierra pulled up something on her tablet. "Tyrell's been cooking the books for months. The company's hemorrhaging money, and Bradley's too arrogant to see it." As if on cue, my phone lit up with a text from Andrea. "Bradley's acting weird. Came home at 3 a.m. last night. Says everything's fine, but..." "How bad is it?" I asked Sierra. "Bad enough that my firm's considering a hostile takeover." She leaned forward. "And here's the kicker. Guess who Tyrell approached about partnering with him to push Bradley out?" "You're kidding." "Nope. He has no idea we're friends. Thinks he's being clever." Sierra's smile was razor sharp. "Want to hear something even better? The Wilson contract Bradley's been bragging about for months? It's hanging by a thread, and the only reason they haven't pulled out completely is because of the charity work you did with Mrs. Wilson last summer." I sat back, processing this information. Does Bradley know this? Please. Bradley probably thinks Mrs. Wilson stuck around because of his charming personality. Sierra rolled her eyes. Speaking of which, her office door burst open, and there stood Bradley himself, his usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. "Sierra, I didn't expect..." He stopped short when he saw me. "Edith, what are you doing here?" "Just having coffee with my friend," I said innocently. "What brings you to this part of town?" Bradley's face did something complicated. "Friend? You know Sierra?" "Know her?" Sierra laughed. "Edith and I go way back. College roommates, actually. But please, have a seat. What can I do for you?" Bradley sat down slowly, his eyes darting between us. I wanted to discuss some potential business opportunities." "Oh?" Sierra's voice was honey-sweet. "Would these opportunities have anything to do with Tyrell's recent activities?" The color drained from Bradley's face. "How did you..." "Word gets around," Sierra said. "Especially when someone's trying to shop around a company takeover behind their partner's back." Bradley's phone rang, interrupting whatever excuse he was about to make. He checked it and swore under his breath. "Excuse me, I need to take this." He stepped out into the hallway, but we could still hear him through the door. "What do you mean they're pulling out?" No, call Mrs. Wilson. I don't care if she's not taking our calls. Figure it out." I turned to Sierra. "Should we tell him?" "About what? That you're the reason his company still has any contracts at all? Or that Tyrell's been meeting with our firm's competitors?" Sierra shook her head. "Let him sweat a little." Bradley came back in, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "Sierra, I need to speak with you privately about..." "Anything you need to say to me, you can say in front of Edith," Sierra interrupted. "After all, she's on our board of community advisors." I thought Bradley's eyes might pop out of his head. "She's what?" "Oh, didn't you know?" Sierra's voice dripped with false surprise. "Edith's been instrumental in several of our major community investment decisions. In fact, she's the one who first brought Mrs. Wilson's charitable foundation to our attention." Bradley collapsed into his chair, finally connecting the dots. "The Wilson contract. Isn't that funny?" I said, standing up. "How the real world works sometimes?" I gathered my purse, enjoying the way Bradley's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. "I should get going. I have a school board meeting to chair. Just another day of not having a real job." As I reached the door, Bradley called out, "Edith, wait." I turned back. "Yes?" He swallowed hard. I might need your help." "Might?" Sierra prompted. "I definitely need your help," he corrected, looking like every word physically pained him. I smiled, thinking of all those condescending comments over the years. Well, isn't that interesting? Tell you what, Bradley, why don't you come over for dinner tomorrow night? We can discuss it then. After all, I have all day to cook, right? I left him there, sitting in Sierra's office, finally realizing that his perfect world was crumbling, and his despised housewife sister-in-law might be his only hope of saving it. You're really going to make him squirm, aren't you? Rose asked, helping me prepare dinner the next evening. The satisfaction in her voice was unmistakable. I'm just going to let karma do its job, I replied, checking the oven, with maybe a little push in the right direction. A little push? Rose snorted. Sis, you've got him cornered like a rat in a trap. The doorbell rang exactly at 7. Bradley was nothing if not punctual when he wanted something. I took my time answering it, smoothing my apron deliberately. He stood there looking distinctly uncomfortable, holding an expensive bottle of wine. Andrea hovered behind him, her usual confident smile nowhere to be seen. Come in, I said warmly. Dinner's almost ready. Edith, Bradley started as soon as they were seated in the living room. About yesterday. Wine? I interrupted, taking the bottle. Let's wait for Heidi. He should be home any minute. And I invited someone else who might be able to help with your situation. Right on cue, the doorbell rang again. Bradley's face went pale when he saw who it was. Mrs. Wilson. I greeted the elegant woman at the door. Thank you so much for coming. Margaret, please, she corrected, embracing me. I wouldn't miss this for the world, especially after that wonderful work you did with our Foundation's education initiative. Bradley nearly choked on his wine. Heidi arrived moments later and we all sat down to dinner. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. So, Bradley, Mrs. Wilson said, delicately cutting into her salmon, Edith tells me you've been having some troubles at work. Well, Bradley stammered, shooting me a panicked look. It's nothing we can't handle. Andrea jumped in, ever the loyal wife. Bradley always figures something out. Does he? Mrs. Wilson raised an eyebrow. Because I heard some rather disturbing things about your partner Tyrell's activities. Things that make me question whether we should continue our contract at all. The color drained from Bradley's face. Mrs. Wilson, I can explain. Can you? She set down her fork. Because I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Your office keeps giving me the runaround. The only reason I'm here tonight is because Edith called and assured me you were worth giving a second chance. I could practically see Bradley's worldview shifting as he looked at me with new eyes. I had no idea, he managed. No, you didn't, Mrs. Wilson agreed. You were too busy dismissing people like your sister-in-law to notice who really holds influence in this community. Heidi cleared his throat. Bradley, maybe it's time to listen to what Edith has to say. I took a sip of wine, savoring the moment. I have a proposal for you, Bradley. But first, I need you to understand something. The world doesn't work the way you think it does. Success isn't just about boardroom deals and power moves. It's about relationships, trust, and respect. I'm starting to see that, Bradley muttered. Are you? Rose challenged. Because from where I'm sitting, you're only here because you're desperate. Rose, I warned, but she wasn't finished. No, he needs to hear this. For years, you've treated Edith like she was beneath you. Like being a housewife meant being stupid or worthless. Well, guess what? While you were busy being important, she was building a network that could save your ass. Or destroy it. Andrea gasped. That's a bit harsh. Is it? Mrs. Wilson interrupted. Because from what I've seen, it's exactly what needed to be said. Bradley sat there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. What do you want from me, Edith? I want you to understand your actions have consequences, I said quietly. I want you to recognize that value comes in many forms. And I want you to make this right. Not just with me, but with everyone you've stepped on while climbing your ladder of success. And if I do, then I'll help you save your company. I'll connect you with the right people, help you rebuild those burned bridges. But it won't be free and it won't be easy. What are your terms? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, reaching for my briefcase. I thought you'd never ask. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Sierra helped me draw these up. I think you'll find them very interesting. As Bradley opened the folder, his eyes widening at its contents, I caught Rose's approving nod. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about reshaping our entire family dynamic, and Bradley was about to learn exactly what a housewife could do when pushed too far. Bradley stared at the documents, his hands trembling slightly. You want a 30% stake in my company? 20% ownership, I corrected, plus a seat on the board and 10% of profits directed to the educational foundation I'm establishing. It's all there in black and white. This is insane, he sputtered. You can't possibly. I can and I will, I interrupted. Or you can try to salvage what's left of your company without my help. I'm sure Tyrell would love that. Mrs. Wilson leaned forward. If I may, Bradley, you're not seeing the bigger picture here. Edith's involvement would restore confidence in your leadership. My foundation would certainly feel more secure about maintaining our contract. And what about Tyrell? Andrea asked, finally finding her voice. He's still a partner. Not for long, I said, pulling another document from my briefcase. Sierra's firm has enough evidence of his financial misconduct to force him out. Unless you'd prefer that evidence find its way to the SEC? Bradley's face went from red to white. You wouldn't. Try me. I met his gaze steadily. The question is, can your ego handle having your housewife's sister-in-law as a business partner? Heidi cleared his throat. Brother, I think it's time you listened. Really listened. You knew about this? Bradley turned to him, betrayed. I knew Edith was smart enough to run circles around both of us, Heidi replied. I just never had the courage to say it before, but I'm saying it now. Take the deal. There's one more condition, I added, turning to a specific page. You need to make a public apology. Not just to me, but to every employee you've belittled, every woman you've dismissed, every person you've stepped on. Public? Bradley choked. You want me to humiliate myself? No, Rose cut in. She wants you to humble yourself. There's a difference. Andrea reached for the documents. Let me see those. She read quickly, her expression changing from skepticism to surprise. Bradley, this is actually brilliant. The restructuring plan, the community involvement initiatives, the corporate governance reforms. This could save us. Save you? Bradley scoffed. We don't need. Yes, we do. Andrea slammed her hand on the table. Our house is mortgaged to the hilt. Our savings are almost gone. You've been hiding it from me, but I'm not stupid. We're one bad quarter away from losing everything. The room fell silent. Bradley seemed to deflate before our eyes. How did you know about the mortgage? He whispered to his wife. The same way I know about the missed payments and the credit card debt, Andrea replied. I finally started paying attention instead of just nodding and smiling. Mrs. Wilson stood up. Well, I think I've seen enough. Edith, you have my full support. Bradley, you have until the end of the week to accept these terms, or our contract is terminated, and I suspect others will follow. After she left, Bradley sat there, staring at the documents like they might bite him. You know what the funny thing is? I said, starting to clear the plates. If you had treated me with respect from the beginning, I would have helped you for nothing. But you made me earn every ounce of your disdain. So now you get to earn every ounce of my help. I don't have a choice, do I? He asked quietly. You always have a choice, I replied. Just like I had a choice to stay quiet all these years. But I'm done being quiet, Bradley. The question is, are you done being arrogant? He picked up the pen I'd placed next to the documents. If I sign this, what's to stop you from destroying me anyway? Because unlike you, I said, I understand that true power isn't about destruction. It's about construction. Building things up instead of tearing them down. Sign the papers, Bradley. Let's build something better together. His hand shook as he signed each page. Andrea signed next, then Heidi as a witness. Welcome to the real world, I said, taking the signed documents. Board meeting is Monday at 9. Don't be late. As Bradley and Andrea left, looking shell-shocked, Rose started laughing. What's so funny? I asked. I was just thinking about all those times he said you didn't have a real job. She grinned. Guess you just got hired as his boss. Heidi wrapped his arms around me. I'm sorry I didn't stand up to him sooner. It's okay, I said, patting his hand. Sometimes the long game is the better game. I looked at the signed documents, thinking about Monday's board meeting and the changes to come. Bradley was about to learn that the real world was a lot bigger than his boardroom, and I was going to enjoy every minute of teaching him that lesson. The boardroom fell silent as I walked in Monday morning, Sierra at my side. Bradley sat at the head of the table looking like he'd aged a decade over the weekend. Tyrell's face turned from confusion to shock when he saw me take a seat. What is she doing here? He demanded. Making sure you don't steal anything else, I replied pleasantly, opening my laptop. Sierra, would you like to start? Sierra stood, distributing folders to everyone present. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to discuss some significant changes in leadership and company structure. This is ridiculous, Tyrell interrupted, standing up. Bradley, you can't be serious about letting your housewife's sister-in-law. Sit down, Tyrell, Bradley said quietly. And don't ever speak about Edith that way again. The shock on everyone's faces at Bradley defending me was almost comical. Almost, Sierra continued. We have evidence of substantial financial irregularities under Mr. Tyrrell's management. Would you like to see the documentation, or would you prefer to resign quietly? Tyrell's face turned purple. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Tyrell's own voice discussing kickbacks with a supplier. The color drained from his face. How did you— Next time you're planning to betray someone, I advised, don't do it at the country club where I organize charity events. The staff there love me. They hear everything. This is illegal, he spluttered. You can't record. Actually, Sierra interrupted, Georgia is a one-party consent state. And besides, you were in a public space. Now, about that resignation. Tyrell grabbed his briefcase and stormed out, but not before Bradley called after him. We'll be in touch about repayment arrangements. The door slammed. I turned to the remaining board members. Now, let's discuss the company's new direction. For the next 2 hours, we laid out plans for financial recovery, corporate restructuring, and community engagement initiatives. Bradley remained unusually quiet, speaking only when directly addressed. And finally, I concluded, the public statement. Bradley stiffened. Edith, please. It's non-negotiable, I said firmly. The press conference is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I've spent 20 years building my reputation, he protested weakly. Andrea, who had been sitting in as a guest, spoke up. And you've spent 20 years tearing down others, including your family. It's time, Bradley. The meeting adjourned, but as everyone filed out, Bradley remained seated, staring at his hands. Why didn't you expose Tyrell sooner? He asked quietly. You could have stopped this months ago. Because you needed to learn something, I replied, gathering my papers. And some lessons only stick when they hurt. I've been awful to you, he admitted. All these years. Yes, you have. I sat back down. But this isn't about revenge, Bradley. It's about growth. You're a brilliant businessman, but you're a terrible brother-in-law. I'm hoping we can fix both. By humiliating me in front of the entire business community? By showing them that true leadership includes admitting mistakes and making amends. I leaned forward. The question is, are you brave enough to do it? He looked at me for a long moment. Did you really hear everything at the country club? No, I smiled. But I knew if I claimed I did, Tyrell would assume the worst and run. People with guilty consciences usually do. Bradley actually laughed. You played him. Like a fiddle, I agreed. Just like he played you all these years. The difference is I did it to save your company, not destroy it. Andrea touched her husband's arm. Bradley, it's time to let go of your pride. Look what it's cost us already. He covered her hand with his. I don't know if I can do this. You can, I said, standing, because the alternative is losing everything. And despite what you might think, I don't want that. I want my nieces and nephews to be proud of their father. I want my husband to have his brother back. I want this family to heal. And the company? The company will survive. Maybe even thrive once people see its leadership has a conscience and a commitment to change. I headed for the door but paused. The press conference is at 9 tomorrow. Wear the blue tie. It makes you look more approachable. Edith, he called after me. Thank you for not destroying me when you could have. That's what family does, I replied. We help each other grow even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. As I walked out, I heard Andrea say to Bradley, She's right, about everything. Tomorrow would be hard for him, but necessary. Sometimes the path to redemption starts with public humiliation and ends with private growth. Bradley was about to learn that lesson the hard way, but at least he was finally ready to learn. The press conference was set to begin in 30 minutes when I overheard something that made my blood run cold. I was checking the podium setup when Terrell's voice drifted from around the corner of the building. Everything's in place, he was saying in a low voice. Once Bradley makes his statement, we release the documents. His reputation will be destroyed completely. And the buyers are ready? Another voice asked. They'll swoop in when the stock crashes. We'll get everything for pennies on the dollar. I pulled out my phone and started recording, carefully peering around the corner. Tyrell was standing with two men in expensive suits, passing them what looked like a flash drive. What about his sister-in-law? One of the men asked. We heard she's involved now. Tyrell laughed. The housewife? Please, she's in over her head. Once this hits the news, she'll run back to her kitchen where she belongs. I'd heard enough. Slipping away, I immediately called Sierra. We have a problem, I said, forwarding her the recording. Tyrell's planning something. On it, she replied. Stall Bradley's speech. Give me 15 minutes. I rushed back inside to find Bradley pacing in the green room, looking pale in his blue tie. We need to delay, I announced. What? No, Bradley protested. If I don't do this now, I'll lose my nerve. Trust me, I insisted, just as my phone buzzed with a text from Sierra. Got it. Tyrell fabricated documents, coming with proof. The door burst open and Andrea rushed in. Bradley, turn on the news, now. We flipped on the TV just in time to see Tyrell being led out of his office in handcuffs, FBI agents carrying boxes of documents behind him. Breaking news, the reporter was saying. Federal agents have arrested former executive Tyrell Summers on charges of fraud and corporate espionage. Bradley sank into a chair. He was going to destroy everything. He was going to try. I corrected, showing him my phone with the recording. But he made the same mistake you did, underestimating the housewife. Sierra appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. We got him. He was planning to release fake documents during your speech, crash the company's stock, then have his partners buy it out. How did you move so fast? Bradley asked, amazed. Because unlike Tyrell, I actually do have friends at the FBI. Sierra grinned. And they've been building a case against him for months. Your sister-in-law's recording was just the final piece they needed. The press is getting restless, Andrea warned, peeking out the door. I turned to Bradley. This changes your speech. You need to address this too. I don't know if I can. Yes, you can, I interrupted. Because now you have a chance to show real leadership. Not just apologize for past mistakes, but demonstrate how to handle a crisis with integrity. He stood, straightening his tie. Will you stand with me? No, I said firmly. This is your moment. Show them who you really are, not who you've been pretending to be. Bradley walked to the podium alone, cameras flashing. I watched from the side as he took a deep breath and began. Good morning. By now you've seen the news about my former partner's arrest. But that's not why I called this press conference. I'm here because I need to apologize. Not just for trusting the wrong person, but for being the wrong person myself. The room fell silent as Bradley continued. his voice growing stronger. For years, I've measured success by the wrong metrics. I've dismissed and disrespected people who deserved better. I've confused arrogance with leadership. Today, that changes. He went on to outline the company's new direction, emphasizing community involvement and ethical business practices. When he finished, the questions from reporters were surprisingly respectful. "Mr. Bradley, what role will your sister-in-law play in the company's future?" He smiled, looking directly at me. "Edith will be taking a seat on our board where she should have been all along. She's proven that true business acumen isn't about corner offices or fancy titles. It's about understanding people, building relationships, and having the courage to do what's right." As the press conference wrapped up, Heidi appeared beside me, taking my hand. "You did it," he whispered. "No," I replied, watching Bradley handle the reporters with newfound humility. "He did it. He just needed a little push." My phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Watching the news. Is this for real?" I typed back, "It's real. Turns out even dinosaurs can evolve when they have to." Bradley was still talking to reporters, but now he was speaking about family values and the importance of respecting all contributions to success. I smiled, remembering his dismissive comments about just a housewife. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's reformation. 3 months after the press conference, I sat in my new office reviewing quarterly reports when Bradley knocked on my door. "Got a minute?" he asked, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Made it myself. From the break room, not some fancy cafe." "Will wonders never cease?" I teased, accepting the cup. "What's on your mind?" "The Wilson Foundation contract. They're expanding their commitment, doubling their investment." He sat down, looking almost shy. "Thanks to your education initiative proposal." "Our proposal," I corrected. "You did good work on those numbers. Never thought I'd be taking direction from my little brother's wife." He chuckled, then quickly added, "And I mean that as a compliment now." The office phone rang. I put it on speaker. "Yes?" "Mrs. Newton?" My assistant called. "Your husband is here with lunch, and Mrs. Wilson is online too about the charity gala." "Send Heidi in," I replied, "and tell Margaret I'll call her right back." Bradley stood to leave just as Heidi entered with takeout bags. "Stay," Heidi insisted. "We need to discuss the family dinner anyway." "About that," Bradley said, settling back down. "Andrea wants to host this time. Says it's time we returned the favor." "As long as she's cooking and not you." I laughed. "Remember the Christmas disaster of 2019? Hey, how was I supposed to know turkeys needed to thaw?" We were still laughing when Sierra burst in, waving a tablet. "You need to see this. Now." The headline made my heart skip. "Former executive Terrell Summers agrees to testify against international fraud ring." "It gets better," Sierra said, scrolling down. He named names. Big names. People who've been manipulating markets across 3 continents. "Our company?" Bradley asked, tensing. "Clean," Sierra confirmed. "Thanks to Edith's new compliance protocols, which, by the way, the SEC is considering adopting as industry standards." Heidi beamed with pride. "That's my wife. Our stock price is going to soar when this hits the wider market." Bradley mused. "All those investors who were worried about Terrell's involvement are about to see that we're the ones who helped bring down a major financial crime network." I finished. "Not bad for a housewife, huh?" Bradley winced. "I deserve that, and probably will for a long time." "Yes, you will," I agreed. "But you're learning. That counts for something." My phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Turn on Channel 7 now." We crowded around my office TV just in time to see Tyrell being led into court, looking haggard in an orange jumpsuit. "Hard to believe that's the same man who thought he could outsmart everyone," Heidi commented. "Pride comes before a fall," I said. "Speaking of which, Bradley, how's the employee mentorship program coming along?" "Actually," he smiled, "I wanted to show you something." He pulled out his phone and played a video of himself speaking to a group of young employees, mostly women. He was answering questions about work-life balance and the importance of recognizing diverse perspectives in business. Who are you and what have you done with my brother? Heidi joked. Let's just say I had an excellent teacher in humility, Bradley replied, nodding at me. Sierra checked her watch. Hate to break up this lovely family moment, but we have the investor call in 10 minutes. Right. I stood, gathering my papers. Bradley, you're leading this one. Me? But you're better at building relationships, yes. But you need to show them you've changed, that you're not the same man who let Tyrell run wild. He straightened his tie nervously. Will you stay on the call? Of course. Family supports family, even when they've been total jerks for 20 years. I'm never living that down, am I? Not a chance, Heidi and I said in unison. As we headed to the conference room, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. Power suit, confident stride, not exactly the image of a traditional housewife. But then again, maybe it was time to redefine what that meant. Oh, Bradley stopped suddenly. Andrea wanted me to ask, for the family dinner, should she make your famous pot roast recipe? I smiled, remembering all those dinners where he'd dismissed my cooking as cute. Tell her I'll come over early and we'll make it together. After all, some skills are worth passing on. Even to those who didn't appreciate them before? Especially to those who didn't appreciate them before. That's how change happens, one pot roast at a time. We entered the conference room, ready to face the investors. Bradley at the head of the table, me at his right hand. A family united, stronger for having been broken and rebuilt. Sometimes the best victories aren't won in boardrooms or courtrooms, but in the quiet moments when people finally see each other for who they really are. The autumn evening at Andrea and Bradley's house felt different from our previous family gatherings. The tension that used to permeate these dinners had been replaced by something warmer, more genuine. Mom, Uncle Bradley's teaching me about stocks, my daughter announced, helping to set the table. Is he now? I raised an eyebrow at Bradley, who was actually wearing an apron as he checked on the pot roast. She's a natural, he said proudly. Asked better questions than half my MBA interns. Andrea emerged from the wine cellar with a bottle. Remember when you used to say women weren't cut out for finance? Remember when I was an idiot? Bradley replied, making us all laugh. The doorbell rang. Rose arrived with Sierra, followed by Mrs. Wilson and her husband. Our family dinners had grown lately, expanding to include the people who'd helped reshape our lives. Something smells amazing, Sierra said, sniffing the air. Bradley and Andrea's first solo attempt at my pot roast, I explained. I only supervised this time. And only had to stop them from burning it twice, Heidi added, earning a playful glare from his brother. As we settled around the table, Bradley cleared his throat. Before we eat, I have an announcement. Everyone fell silent. Bradley wasn't usually one for dinner speeches anymore, not since the press conference that had changed everything. The board voted today, he continued. Edith, they want you to take over as CEO. I nearly dropped my wine glass. What? I nominated you, he said. And it was unanimous. Even the old guard agreed. You're the right person to lead the company forward. But you, I started. Will be stepping into a new role as chairman of the board, he finished. Focusing on what I do best, strategy and partnerships. But the day-to-day leadership? That should be you. Told you so. Sierra sang out, grinning. Pay up, Rose. You bet on this? I asked incredulously. Of course we did, Rose laughed. I just thought it would take Bradley another month to swallow his pride. Very funny, Bradley said, but he was smiling. The truth is, Edith, you've been running things anyway. This just makes it official. What about the shareholders? I asked. The press? Already handled, Mrs. Wilson interjected. The major investors are thrilled. Your community initiatives have boosted both profits and public trust. The press release goes out tomorrow morning. I looked at Heidi, who squeezed my hand. You've earned this, he said softly. Besides, Bradley added, someone needs to keep me humble. Might as well be my CEO's sister-in-law. Speech? Andrea called out, raising her glass. I stood, looking around at the faces of my family, both blood and chosen. When this all started, I just wanted Bradley to respect me, to see me as more than just a housewife. But somewhere along the way, it became about more than that. It became about respect for everyone, Bradley finished. About recognizing that true leadership isn't about power or position. It's about lifting others up, I agreed. About building something meaningful together. To the new CEO, Sierra proposed, raising her glass. And to family, Bradley added quietly, who sometimes teach us our hardest and most important lessons. Speaking of lessons, Andrea chimed in, the pot roast is about to burn again. Bradley rushed to the kitchen, cursing good-naturedly. Some skills take more practice than others. As laughter filled the room, I caught Rose's eye. She mouthed silently, "You did it." And I had. Not just the career transformation or the family reconciliation, but something bigger. We'd changed the narrative about what success looks like, about who gets to have a seat at the table. Bradley returned with the slightly overdone but still edible pot roast. First official act as CEO, we're hiring a cooking instructor for the executive team. Second official act, I countered, implementing a company-wide policy recognizing the value of all work, whether it's in the boardroom or the break room. Third official act, he suggested, making these family dinners a monthly tradition. That, I said, looking around at our expanded family, was never in question. As we passed dishes around the table, the conversation flowing easily between business strategy and family stories, I realized something profound. Success wasn't about winning or losing, about revenge or redemption. It was about creating spaces where everyone could grow, even those who once tried to keep you small. "Hey, Edith," Bradley called from across the table. "Remember when I said you didn't have a real job?" Hard to forget. Well, he smiled, raising his glass. "Here's to proving me wrong. CEO." The title sounded good, but not as good as the genuine respect in his voice when he said my name. Some victories aren't measured in stock prices or board votes, but in the simple acknowledgement of worth. Everyone's worth.